If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics, there's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
T. Madden and Associates is a sophisticated and experienced law firm located in your neighborhood. We're turning injury to cash.
T. Madden and Associates obtained almost $2 million for my injury. They turned my injury to cash.
Now, we can't guarantee how much your injury is worth, but we've recovered millions for our clients.
Call T. Madden and Associates at 833-PAID-123. That's 833-PAID-123.
Stride K-12 powered schools are ready to put over 20 years of being a leader in online education to work for you. Dive into curriculum designed for the online classroom. Team up with state-certified teachers trained in virtual instruction. Take control of your child's education journey. Discover the power of personalized learning with a leader experienced in preparing kids for a future they can be excited about. Take charge. Stride K-12. Enroll now for the fall.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to another live episode of the BCSN SportsWrap. I'm Brian Fulford. That's A.D. Drew. Pleased to be on with you tonight. Drew, how we doing tonight? Good to see you at the start of the show in the home box.
No comment.
All right, that's fine. We got a lot of talk about.
All I can say is my ride went as planned today as I headed home today.
There you go.
Like last week.
Just taking in a little bit of the action on my screen. Anybody? I missed. I'm gonna tell you what, Drew. I got to get down and figure out a way how to improve my situation. My TV watching situation. Just having issues with the good old NFL network. So, just issues, man. It's like, come on, man. I'm paying this extra money to get the red zone, and I'm just having issues. It's just like, but anyway.
And Brian, you fell for it.
I did, didn't I? I did. I couldn't help it. Could not help it.
Only time you have internet problems is with the red zone.
Well, it was I couldn't get. There's no other way to watch anything. I'm trying to figure out. In between the transition, I'm trying to figure out how did the Bills just score that touchdown to go up by 10 on the Eagles at the half. I've had a good afternoon. I'm trying to see, can I parlay it into something good this evening while we're on the show, Drew? You know what I mean?
I got you, man.
So yeah, anybody in the chat room if you guys can tell me how the Eagles oh no, it was Diggsy. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. That's 2/5 of it. 2/5. Drew, that's all I'm
Brian,
gonna tell you.
Is this an NFL show or is this a HBCU
This is the
sports show?
Wrap. No, I don't know, Drew. This is the Sports Wrap. We
on what network? On what network?
Yes, it is on the Black Collar Sports Network. Yes, it is. But we rap about sports, Drew. Don't get it twisted.
Just want to make sure I didn't miss the hostile takeover.
No. 90% HBCU, 10% other. So
okay.
Yeah. Right now. And yes, Edwin, my Colts did win. We we pushed the Bucks off the plank, and we're in playoff mode, baby. Minshew magic. That's all I'm gonna say. So that's why I'm going for a winning week this week, Drew. I need all my teams to win. All my teams winning. It started Saturday, it's starting Sunday, and I'm hoping it parlays into the trifecta on Saturday as we begin championship week, SWAC Championship week in Tallahassee.
Yeah. I hope this weekend goes better for you than it did for a lot of HBCU fans this past weekend.
Yeah, sad days for folks in Columbia, South Carolina, and Durham, North Carolina.
And half of Louisiana.
Yep, the northern half of Louisiana is a little down in the dumps as well. A segment of Alabama might be feeling a little some kind of ways as well, as we had the final week, the final regular season for it's kind of the official. It's like the end of one season, the beginning of another, because you got D2 playoffs happening, you got FCS playoffs happening, and all that stuff is going on. So we'll get into all that here in a moment.
Who's your basketball coach?
Who's my basketball coach?
Yeah, because there's only 4 schools that can say they're not as concerned about their basketball program right now. 5 schools. Because their football teams are still playing.
I would hope
for our FCS teams, who's your bowling coach?
You're funny. Say that earlier. I hope people do get interested in the basketball season as much as they
do. Your microphone has left you, Brian.
That's all right, Drew. We don't have to call that out. When that happens, just let it go. Just let it roll. Just let it roll, Drew, because that kind of S is gonna happen, and you know that. I know that. Whatever.
Hey, since this is the season of giving and it's the holiday season, we need some super chats. We need some tips. We need some donations. So my partner, Brian Fulford,
Oh wow.
can get a headset, or even better, if we get him up right enough, he could get a microphone like this. He could get him a nice microphone like this with some headphones, so that I do not have to endure the pain of him not only on the sports wrap, but on the OG strike zone. And Brian, if this is not the most important week in the history of the OG strike zone to this point, I don't know what is, Brian. Outside of our tribute to Kofi Hemingway or his untimely passing, this has got to be the next most important week in the history of your Wednesday podcast, the OG Strike Zone, Brian.
All right. So I appreciate it. So of course, you can always those of you who if you want to leave a donation, you can do that in the super chat on YouTube. Hold on, I'll put the banner up as well. That way, if there's anybody who's feeling so inclined and you want to leave a donation, there's the Cash App as well. You can make a donation to the show, and we'll see how quickly I can make an order on
Amazon. Amazon is your friend. You can have it before our next show.
It is. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about with the end of the season, the end of the regular season for many teams. We're still in championship mode, look-ahead mode for a lot of other schools. So many different directions we can go. I heard you guys, you and Doc and Joshua Sims this morning. What was his mood this morning? I didn't catch all of it, but how's Joshua doing these days? This morning, how was he feeling?
I mean, he's like any other fan. He's just like, I was when Tuskegee lost in the playoffs a few years ago. Always wishful thinking. Your team can go further than it did. You were a couple of calls here and there. You feel that it was better, but overall he was in a good mood. He wasn't bad. He wasn't out here blaming the referees or blaming the draw or anything like this. It's football, Brian. Things happen in football, and Joshua pointed out one key moment in the game that totally changed the momentum of the ball game. And we'll get into that as we break that game down, Brian.
I put a poll out there Saturday morning. What outcome do you see for the playoff teams? Both teams to win, Benedict to win, North Carolina Central to win, or both teams' season ends. I'm encouraged by the fact that 47% of the people kind of thought both teams would win. I really am. I'm encouraged by that. 27% had both teams losing. That was the second highest choice. With Central and Benedict losing, I'm not going to, look, I was very optimistic that both teams could win. And what was even more disappointing was that both teams went into halftime with a lead. Both teams went into halftime looking good. And then to see how the third quarter for both teams turned out, it just brings back that sad statistic that's out there regarding HBCU teams in the playoffs. And I don't have to go over what it is. You can imagine and guess what it is. And so, we kind of watched a good team, two good teams go down in flames. It was like watching the ship. It was like by the time you had the fourth quarter in both of those games, Drew, it's like standing on the banks and just watching the boat take in water. And you just know there's no quick patch. or nothing that's gonna. I mean, maybe you're hoping, but you kind of had that. I had that sinking feeling. Now that's just me, but I've been there. I've seen it happen too many times. And sadly, I think for a lot of us, we get surprised in those moments when we do see teams succeed. What can I mean? And we can get into talking about both games here, but I just want to talk broader picture. Can you point to anything, any one thing in particular? And it's probably more complex than to just point to one thing. But is there a thing that you saw or a thing that you thought of when you think of both of these games as to why both teams failed or had such bad third quarters?
I'll start with Benedict. Benedict got hit in the mouth, and it took them a moment to realize what happened to them. But Benedict was behind the 8 ball the entire day. Sly, the sports guy, who was the play-by-play voice on the game that I worked at Benedict, brought out an interesting statistic. And that, coupled along with the statistic that you brought out on Thursdays inside the HBCU Sports Lab, really had me thinking, Brian. And your statistic was the fact that when Lenore Ryan scores first, they were 11-0 on the season.
Yep.
And I did bring that up during our pregame. Then Slide brought out another interesting statistic. Someone was going to get their first on Saturday. Their first what, you may ask? Benedict was 0-1 in playoffs. Lenore Ryan had never won a playoff game on the road.
I saw that.
Something had to give on Saturday. Unfortunately for Benedict, it was Lenore Ryan picking up their first playoff victory on the road. But here's the thing, Brian. Looking at that particular game, and we'll get deeper into it. Benedict has out-talented everyone else in the SIAC for the last 2 years. And when they were able to make mistakes, it did not hurt them because they were able to out-talent and out-execute all the SIAC teams. This was not the case against a team of this level. And when you get to this time of the season, this level of playoffs, everyone is good. And you have to play a clean game in order to win, even when you are a good team. Unfortunately, that was not the case with Benedict. North Carolina Central, one thing shifted the momentum in that particular ball game, and that was the injury to Davius Richard. When on the touchdown run that he scored and was literally walking into the end zone, the defender for the Richmond Spiders took his legs out. Richard landed awkwardly at that point. Wound up sitting out the next series. Carolina Central went 3-out on that next series. With why is his name slipping me right now?
Backup quarterback.
Yes, his name is
Walker Harris. Walker Harris.
Yeah, Walker Harris. Okay, Walker Harris went 3-out, almost threw what could have been a pick six.
Ooh, yes. Yep.
At that point, as a coaching staff, a decision had to be made. Do we go with the backup, or do we go with go with the injured starter, who's gotten us to this point? We would not be in the position that we are in without this starter. But he clearly was not able to do what he does, especially with him not having his wheels as a dual threat quarterback. If he was a statue quarterback, then that would have been something different. But it took probably the most important element for Central is the threat of Davius Richard running. And at that point, Richmond looks like they were able to tee off and flip the momentum of the game to the point where Central just could not come back. So those were the two things. What can be done? I don't know, Brian. I don't know. And like Dr. Cavil said this morning, because we are a small subset of teams in both FCS and Division II. There are 21 HBCUs in FCS, of which our two traditional conferences get 0 automatic bids to them. So every time we get a team in, and we've been lucky to get a team in 2 of the last 3 years, that is exactly it, Brian. We are lucky that we have a team that is good enough to be considered for the FCS playoffs. Division II does not give out automatic bids. They give out preferred qualifiers. And things have played out where our conferences have been represented by those preferred qualifiers. Last year was an aberration where we happened to get 2 CIAA teams into the tournament. Traditionally, we get the one out of our conferences. But be mindful. Had Albany State found a way to beat Benedict in the SIAC championship, the SIAC would not have been represented in the tournament this year.
You don't think Benedict would have got even an at-large bid? It had Albany State won?
Possibly. But they would not have gotten in under the preferred qualifier rules.
Qualifier, right. Yeah.
Yes. So with that being said, we've got 21 out of 128 opportunities. 19 out of 128, because you lose the 2 automatic champions on the FCS level. You've got 28, I believe, Division II teams out of 163 Division II teams. So it's either 163 or 168 Division II teams. So we talk about putting all of our hopes on one team at this level, 1 to 2 teams at another level. But Brian, when you think about it, we really don't have the opportunities. And it's due to nobody's fault of their own. But it's just like going down and buying a lottery ticket. If you buy one lottery ticket, the chances of that one lottery ticket hitting are what, Brian? Slim to none. But if you have multiple lottery tickets, such as the Gulf South Conference, such as the SAC, such as the PSAC, and on the Division I level, conferences such as the Missouri Valley Conference, the CAA Conference, the Big South Conference, your chances of your conference looking better because they have multiple lottery tickets, i.e. playoff bids, is great, which is why those conferences tend to look good. You know that person who always hits on the pick 3, Brian, about once a month in your office?
No, unfortunately, I don't know him or her. No, I wish I did.
Somebody out there knows that person who I'm talking about. But how many pick 3 tickets are they buying every day? That's the thing.
I'm gonna reject. I'm gonna push back on the analogy. I like where you're going with that. My pushback with the analogy, Drew, is that we aren't just putting in any kind of random team into these fields. We took the very best team that we had in Division II football, right? Benedict was the very best of the best. North Carolina Central, regarded as one of 2 teams that were best of the best in among 21 FCS schools. So it's not like we sent in, we didn't send in the sixth man or the JV. No. This was a legit starter that went into the tournament. Okay. And they played like it. My thing, though, is, and I think this is where people get frustrated, and I hear it, so I'm just going to say it. People get frustrated backing the HBCUs out in the open space of the playoff fields because when situations like, and I'm just going to throw them out there, in Benedict's case, right? Benedict's leading at the half, and they got punched in the mouth in the third quarter. They had 4 or 3? 3 or 4 consecutive drives. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Might have even had a fourth one in there. Drew, they had 0 yards, 0 completions. They had nothing. They threw up a donut in the third quarter in terms of productivity on offense. 7 runs, 2 passes, I think is what I tweeted out when I saw it at the end of the third quarter. I mean, nothing. And we've talked about the special teams problems that they've had.
I was there.
Oh yeah, okay. So So I'm just saying it for everyone else. Then I'm just saying you were there. Obviously, you were there. And so when people see that, and then you say, man, you stopped them, and then. Why can't you? Look, it's hard to stop him. And that running back for Lenore Rhyme, I don't think we mentioned him on the show we did on Thursday, but that kid had 1,200 yards going into the contest. So he added up another 200. So he's sitting on 1,400 on the year plus. So that kid came in with street cred, even though the passing game is what got a lot of people's attention going into the game. But the kid who runs the ball, he had 1,200 yards through 12 games. That's 100 per. Okay. So we knew something had to give. And unfortunately, it was Benedict's offense that kind of went kaput in the third quarter. And credit to Lenore Ryan, because here's one thing. I had a couple people ask me on X, what happened to Benedict? And I said, look, when you look at that Final Four in that region, Lenore Ryan, Valdosta State, and Delta State. Those are 3 schools in the same conference with 1 loss. And they're all ranked inside the top 15 nationally. And I think you could make a legitimate argument, Drew, that let's just say Benedict had maybe stumbled somewhere in the regular season with a loss and still won the SIC with a 10-1 or 11-1 record. Everybody had a claim that they probably could have been the number 1 seed. Would you agree? Would you agree with that when you look back at it? The top 4 seeds, all of them could have had laid a claim on being the number 1 seed.
Had Benedict lost the game, no, Benedict would not have been able to make that claim.
Well, you don't think Benedict would have got a 4 seed even as the SIC champion?
Honestly,
no? Okay.
Not with the strength of schedule of the SIAC. Benedict did that with the dominance, because when you look at and when you look at the ratings of the SIAC competition, and there's no disrespect to the SIAC teams, but those Go South teams all rated above. A lot of them were rated above the next best team in the SIAC.
Right.
So that's why Benedict does not probably get a top 4 seed were it not for 11-0. And not being able to explain how an 11-0 team does not get rated. But Brian, here's the thing. Styles make fights. And let's stay in Super Region 2. When you take the style that the Gulf South teams play and the SAC teams play, compared to the styles that CIAA teams play,
Which
And
is what? Break that down. Explain that for people.
The thing is, how are these teams built? They don't build their teams for the playoffs. They build their teams to win the conference. That's your goal. That's your first goal, is to win your conference championship. Correct, Brian?
It should be the first goal. Yeah.
And in order to win a conference championship, you have to build a team that has the style, the guts, the grit, and everything else to succeed in your particular conference. And if you are a PSAC team, I guarantee you, PSAC teams that's up in Pennsylvania, that's the Pennsylvania Conference, are not teams that are running spread offenses. Not a whole lot of. They have plays, but they're not running a whole lot of spread offense because of where they play, the region they play.
How would you describe Lenore Ryan? How would you describe what Lenore Ryan's style was offensively?
Oh, Lenore Ryan is legit.
I mean, but in terms of, is it as a 2-back set spread?
No,
what?
Now Lenore Ryan ran a spread. They ran some tempo, but they would throw the ball. And the thing with Lenore Ryan, Benedict would do a good job on first down, second down. May get a TFL, may get a sack. The problem was, Brian, none of those tackles for losses or sacks occurred on third down when you need to get plays like that. Those are momentum plays when you get a tackle for loss on third down. It's a momentum play when you get a sack on a third down, because not only are you getting the defense off the field, but you're getting the defense off the field with the message. What would happen? Those plays would occur on first and second down, and you would have third and 8, third and 12.
That's where
Benedict Ryan would do.
That's where Benedict had been getting stops. They were fifth in the nation. Fifth in the nation.
They did not
third down.
And they did not get those stops. And you know what would happen, Brian? Third and 12, completion for 14 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Third and 8, a draw play, 10 yards. And that's what played Benedict all day. At one point, Brian, and I'll also see what the final statistic was, but at one point, Lenore Ryan was north of 50% on third down. I think at one point they were like 7 of 12 in the fourth, going to the fourth quarter. They finished 8 of 16. At one point, Brian, Benedict was 2 of 13 on fourth down in the fourth quarter. Third down.
Yeah, they finished 3 of 15.
So what does that mean? Their defense was getting the stops, was getting those momentum plays, and Benedict was not. The irony of that, Brian, is Benedict went 3 of 3 on fourth down.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Despite not having success on third down. So, but that's what it was, you know. And with these two teams, it was big plays. Both these teams' defenses played good, but you would get a tackle for loss, short gain, and then boom, 15-yard run, or 13-yard completion, or things like that. And that went both ways throughout the first half. Benedict was the benefactor. In the third quarter, all of a sudden, that became very one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
Benedict was not getting those. I mean, look at the first down disparity, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
Lenore Ryan, 24 first downs. Benedict, 16 first downs. And one of those 16 occurred via a penalty, y'all. So they only earned 15 first downs. Benedict, only 3 first downs rushing the ball. And Brian, don't let that be misleading to you. A lot of those third downs that Benedict did not earn was what you want to call third and manageable third down situations. What's manageable third and four or less. Mm-hmm. And Benedict was not able to pick up those type of first downs that they've been able to pick up all season long. Flip that. Lenore Ryan was able to pick up the third, and mediums.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference in the game when you really get it. And this is something you can't pull this up on the stat sheet, but I'm telling you, Brian, this is something you had to be there to witness. And you could probably go back through the play-by-play and see this and put the data together to prove what I'm talking about. But that's what I was able to see there live and in person, Brian. You want
I do want to. I do. Yeah, I did want to go back real quick and touch on a couple of things regarding North Carolina Central, but I wanted to take a second to take.
Can I answer this one right quick, Brian?
Let's do it after the break. Let's come back and hit on those questions. Just start, and we'll come back and talk, because I did want to finish my point and go over to North Carolina Central side about what I didn't see on the adjustment and who the missing man was. I felt like who was the missing man for North Carolina Central in their third quarter. So we'll talk about that on the other side. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network as Drew takes a phone call. We'll be back in just a second.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford, A.D. Drew will be back here in just a second. Wanted to hit up a couple of questions from some folks that I seen in the chats. Just kind of going through some of the ones that Drew started. I know we had Jeff Roberts here. Jeff, HBCUs have to develop better offensive lines. That's a good one. We'll talk to Coach Farasi Norman coming up at the top of hour 2 and talk to him about, I mean, that's his specialty, offensive line play, and just kind of maybe pick his brain and find out what it is. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jeff, because that is an area that I think gets underappreciated, under-talked about, under-evaluated maybe. So we'll kind of talk to him and kind of find out what should HBCUs be doing? What aren't they doing How can the offensive line play get better? I would love, because that is an area that when the offensive line is good, it shows. When it's bad, it's really obvious. A&T Roy, you kind of have a similar thought about here, the trench, but the trench size, the size in the trenches being an issue. You mentioned youth and inexperience. This, of course, was the second year that Benedict had an opportunity to go into the playoffs. So I would like to maybe hear and find out from Coach Berry what kind of opportunities and what kind of growth he and his coaching staff had from one playoff appearance to the other. Blue Jacket for life, Drew. Here's a question that you wanted to kind of touch on about why Benedict punted from the Lenoir-Rhyne 32 and 37-yard line. What quarter of the game were those, Drew, when those two punts occurred? Do you recall? You're on mute. Is your audio back?
My bad.
There you go.
Yeah, it's my bad. I believe those were in the second half, if I remember those correctly, Brian. And from what I remember, they had got stopped for a loss on both of those. And I know one of them, and I can't remember whether it was the one from the 32 or the 37-yard line, but it went from like a 3rd and 2 to a 4th and 7 or 4th and 5. And another one, Benedict was lined up on the other one. Benedict was lined up with the intention to go for it, and there was a penalty, like a false start or something along those lines, that changed the dynamics from a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 3 to a 4th and 8, if I remember correctly. And one of those punts, and then I believe it was the one from the 37, Brian, didn't even get punted for a first down.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I see one of them here. Benedict actually punted on the Lenoir in 36. That one in the 4th quarter. Their first drive in the 4th quarter.
What was it? 4th and what? Does it tell you?
I got to go deeper into the play-by-play here, because that was into the 4th quarter. Let's see. 4th quarter. Let's see. Benedict. It was 4th and 7. They went from 3rd and 7 at the Lenoir-Rhyne 36 and ended up punting. and you know what's funny? I think we can analyze the field position game, and every coach has a philosophy. I think if you're a coach that has a philosophy that, like, hey, if we cross the 40 or even the 37 and a half,
especially with that bit of defense.
And yeah, now here's the thing though. Did the punt, now you're talking about punting for the 38, which means the punter is standing back at about almost about midfield, because there's probably about a 10 to 15-yard gap between the line of scrimmage. Right. Where did the ball go? And you just said that the ball didn't go past the first down mark. That's a troublesome thing. If the ball didn't at least get to past the 20, then that's an issue. And see, correct. That's where, look, we're not there every day. So I want to give coaches credit and hope that they're coaching. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm not there on the fence watching practice. I'm not charting what Benedict is doing during the week. But you're hoping that they're practicing those special teams. You're hoping practicing that kind of stuff in those scenarios. And it's got to be frustrating, I'm sure as it is for Coach Berry, that the punting situation is not great, not consistent. And remember last year we talked about the field goal situations and their kicking, and so second year in a row that special teams has sort of let them down, for lack of a better, maybe a lack of a better understanding, right? And maybe it's something that they find a way to go address. You know, maybe you have to go and use one of those scholarships for a good kicker. You really got to go find somebody. Maybe you've been trying to piece it together over the last couple of years. Maybe we actually got to go spend the scholarship dollars on an actual kicker or an actual punter, somebody that's going to really make a true difference, given the way we've kind of lost the last couple years. I don't know. So, all right. I did want to touch on the North Carolina Central game for a second,
because while you adjust your microphone, Brian, I'm gonna address this question right here. How many scholarships are awarded by Lenore, Ryan, and Benedict? I will tell you this: both of these institutions are at full scholarship, that being 36 on the Division II level. Something Coach Berry mentioned in his post-game presser was the fact that Benedict was at full capacity with 36 fulls.
Okay, so no longer, so we can't use that as a reason.
Correct.
Okay, good to know. That's good to know. Going over to North Carolina Central, and I saw somebody else post this. We talked about that play. Richard running into the end zone, getting swiped. I've seen more than one person talk about the injury not necessarily being to his lower body, but more so a shoulder.
His shoulder, yes.
Because he did land kind of hard. And
yes.
He did land. If you look at it, and I watched it, slowed it down, it looked like he did land. Yeah, and Champ says it was a separated shoulder. So it did look like how he landed. And look, if you knew that going into halftime, and that would have been his left shoulder, if I recall how he landed. Don't you make some adjustments when I say make adjustments, don't you adjust the play calling?
Brian, did you see the second half?
I watched it. Drew, I watched the whole thing.
They made adjustments in their play calling.
Okay.
But you got to realize you have taken a lot of the plays out. If he's out here hurting with a separated shoulder, you cannot afford to put him in further harm's way.
Where was Latrell Collier? What happened to Latrell Collier? Collier went MIA. I went and looked. I'm looking at the statistics. I didn't hear his name called much. I think if I go and look at the box score here, because again, I'm watching the game. Matter of fact, I only think I did hear his name called one time. Collier, rushing. 8 carries, net 7 yards. Collier, no catches, 2 catches, no yards. That's supposed to be your number 2 guy. I know Devin Smith showed up in a big time way, but your number 2 guy was supposed to be Latrell Collier. And look, great season, great career for Davius Richard, great season North Carolina Central. And I know y'all are gonna kill me, and I know you hate me, and I say this because I kept it inside all season as people were full of praise for North Carolina Central, but I always felt like their defense was not the strength of that team. Their defense was average to good at best. And, you know, it wasn't good enough when it needed to be. And so when your super all everything quarterback leading that offense is at 50%, well, somebody else has got to be able to rise up and play above their norm. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And see, that's the kind of stuff that, look, I'm not going to take away. So, you know, people are going to poo-poo and say, you know, there's going to be that whole argument and debate about, was it worth it? Things of that kind of nature. And I say 100% it was worth it. It's 100% worth it for Benedict to go out there. 100% worth it for North Carolina Central to have that opportunity to go out there. Because injuries happen in sports. Injuries are a game changer. We've seen it in sports many a times. Minus that injury, do you really think North Carolina Central was going to lose that game? I don't.
They had the momentum.
They had the momentum. I think it would have been just as high scoring game as it turned out to be, except North Carolina Central, instead of only scoring 27, they would have scored 40 something. You know. And it would have been Richmond having to play a little catch up. Let's go to the other elephant in the room. Now that the Benedict season is over, Drew, the attention can turn to Coach Chennis Berry. And what is Coach Chennis Berry going to do? And I think it's an interesting discussion. I don't know. Let me see. He's in the third year. I don't even know if he's on the third year because I think he was hired going into the COVID year. So this is technically the fourth year, right? I saw you put up 4.
Yes. And Benedict may have been one of those teams, I have to go back and look, that may have got a game or two in during COVID. I know Fort Valley did. I'll go and look while you keep talking, Brian.
Well, the question I'm sure that's going to come up is what's the situation and where Chennis Berry might go. Obviously, we know South Carolina State has an opening. He's built or rebuilt a program in Benedict. And I got to give a shout out to a guy on Twitter, a Benedict alum, Kai David Hartwell, who he hit me to a few things that are kind of interesting because, you know, there were some people that were speculating about, you know, can Benedict move up a level? Can Benedict move up?
No, they did not play in 20.
Yeah. So, you know, and I look, if you understand the finances of college athletics, you know, that's a tough question, and it's probably not likely to happen. And
I'm gonna answer that. I'm gonna answer that for you simply, Brian. As long as Benedict is a college, they not gonna be able to move up. Because one thing you need on the FCS level is graduate programs.
Okay. See, there's a level to that statement that I didn't even think about. But I went from the standpoint of just fan support and engagement, which, you know, I saw video clips of the crowd. I'd say it's a little bit better than what it was last year, but, you know, it's interesting to hear about the environment and the market that Benedict resides in. Okay. And and I was getting into the discussion, and here's a few comments. I can't even underscore it. This is coming from a Benedict alum. This is coming from a Benedict grad from 1994. Okay, and he was making me and the other person on Twitter aware that several factors, and I'm reading right from him. He said several factors in play on yesterday, and it had to do with the attendance. I was curious about where was the crowd? Where was the attendance at? Well, he noted that Clemson and South Carolina had a game, and that he said most of the community, Black, still go there instead of maybe to a Benedict game. He said 2 students were gone because classes had ended, obviously, for the break.
No, Brian, incorrect. Classes have ended. Students, they break before Thanksgiving. They do not have to come back.
Okay, so just period. They were gone. Okay, so
all they have to do is take their finals online.
He did say students were gone because classes ended. I thought classes ended mean they were on break. Okay, so he said the community is detached from Benedict football since COVID. And then the fourth thing, which I found interesting, he said there is still a support that people have for South Carolina State University. And he further clarified part of that is because when I'm going back to another tweet that he sent me, Benedict canceled football in 1968. Allen canceled football in 1968. So stop for a second and just think about in 1965, 66, 67, you had South Carolina State, Benedict, and Allen. I don't know if Allen was a university then, or maybe it was Allen.
Probably college at that point.
They all had football programs, right? Benedict and Allen ended their program in 68. What did that leave? That left almost a 30-year window from 68 to 1995, where South Carolina State was the only HBCU in the state of South Carolina with football. So when Benedict restarted their program in 95, I mean, that's a generation that got skipped. You know, that would have been
that's 2 generations.
Probably, yeah. You know, that's probably 2 generations. Allen restarted their program in 2001, stopped it, came back again in 2018. So you've got a lot of people in the Columbia, even people who are old school Benedict grads that are probably followers of South Carolina State. And you go back to those visuals of South Carolina State and those homecoming crowds. There's probably a lot of Benedict alums in that crowd, or a lot of people from Columbia who travel to Orangeburg still, because they invested a 30-year span. D-Champ says geographically public HBCU in the state. Benedict's not a public HBCU.
Private.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so there you go.
Let's see. Allen is AME, and Benedict. I looked this up at one point in time. Benedict may be Baptist.
Allen's private. Yeah, I don't. So let me forward that. Spin that forward. Okay. What does all that mean for Benedict? As Benedict is rebuilding their program, and they had a period where Mike White, I thought, did a good job with Benedict, and then after Mike White, you had the Chinnis-Berry era, which is you're in. So the question is, where do you foresee Chinnis-Berry going in the future? Does he continue to stay at Benedict, where he's sort of rebuilding something and building something, or does he go to South Carolina State, where there's a built-in history? And if you've heard, they've had 3 coaches in probably the history of their program. I heard Buddy Pugh talk about them being like the Pittsburgh Steelers of college athletics, where they've had 3 coaches in the history. I mean, Buddy Willie Jeffries before that, and the name before Jeffries escapes me. But they're looking for somebody who, excuse me, is invested in spending 20 years at South Carolina State. Now, I can't imagine that. Look, in this day and age of movement, that's great if you can get somebody who's willing to say that I'll be here for 20 years. But that means what? You're looking for somebody who's a part of that community. And then the benefit of Southern is that Chennis Berry spent about 6-7 years at Southern, was successful at Southern with Dawson Odoms, won a championship, has strong recruiting ties. He understands the demand at Southern. I mean, we understand what Southern is. You know, we understand what the Southern job is. So I think I in a poll that I put out there, I think I think a lot of people thought he would end up at Southern. But at the end of the day, I don't know what the contract terms left are for him at Benedict. I don't know if Benedict has renewed him recently. But it's good to be in the situation that Chennis Berry is in and have options. And when you've done something that hasn't been done in a long time, I mean, I'm trying to, we did this stat, Drew, and looked it up, the whole going undefeated 2 consecutive years hadn't been done since Connell Maynard did it with Winston-Salem. And prior to Connell Maynard, we're talking probably in the 50s or 60s prior to that, when somebody went unbeaten in 2 consecutive years. So coaches who are operating in rare space, in rare air. Chuck Hunt said Bill Davis and former MEAC commissioner Dr. Dennis Thomas were head coaches at South Carolina State as well. So, all right. Chip says, I remember when Barry was the OC and everybody wanted him gone during that period. Well, everybody, there's that moment. Steve, see, that's what I'm talking about. So,
and Brian
Salem went unbeaten in 77 and 78, and so we're talking from that period all the way
till Winston did it again,
till Connell Maynard did it again, some 30 years later. That's what kind of gap we're talking about, right there.
And Brian, you just brought something out. You said these people wanted Chennis Berry gone. You're part of the successful.
No, wait a minute. Who said that? Who said what? Who wanted Chennis
Berry?
Did
you just say somebody?
No, I was reading what Champ said. I was reading what he said. A&T people wanted him gone. Yeah.
And let's think about this. Let's think about this down at Southern. Eric Dooley, part of a successful run with Pete Richardson, they wanted him back, and then they ran him out of town. Now, a lot of that did not necessarily have to do with football, but they still ran him out of town. So if you're Chennis Berry, and you just saw that,
Chennis Berry talks a better game than Eric Dooley. I'm just gonna say it. It is what it is. If it comes down to talking, if it comes to yes.
And I'm not calling dishonest, but Chennis Berry will tell you what it is on his mind. He's not going to give you a lot of coach speak. Although, Brian, this press conference on yesterday, he did give a lot of coach speak for one of the few times, which makes me really think that possibly he's moving on because one of the reporters there did kind of put it out there, what is the future? And he said, we're gonna go back and reevaluate things and take a look at some things.
So,
that is not a definitive. We're getting ready to hit the recruiting trail to bring in some people.
That's a man who's saying, I have options and I've done a good job here, but I've also got I got two other suitors who look, if you don't think those suitors have contacted Chennis Berry's agent on the back channels, you're crazy. You're crazy. Of course they have. Of course they have. And that's
and Steve, go ahead. Finish up.
No. Go ahead. I was probably just rambling.
I was gonna say, Steve Gaither. I see you on here. Hit me up, man. I got the full press conference if you need it, man. If you need to put a story together, HBCU game day.
Let's keep this chain rolling because we got a tight window and some tight pockets. So we're just gonna bring in Coach Farasi. I see he's already in. Let's see if we can go ahead and bring Coach in and let's see if it works. Coach Farasi, are you there?
Hey, I like that one. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I'm here, brother. Can y'all hear me?
We hear you loud and clear.
Hey, man, it's good to be back. Let me get my doo-wop in. Doo-wop. Hey, doo-wop. Everything like that. I do want to apologize to everybody who's in the crowd. I got a lot of tweets and emails about what happened, and it was something real simple. And I want to thank my brother A.D., who I called after the show, and he told me exactly what to do, and it was working, so I apologize. Glad to be back. Glad to be seen. Hey, how I look? I'm trying to grow a little beard and everything like that. Not to change the subject real quick. I want to go buy me a little.
Let me change the view here so I can put you in the full screen. There you go.
Okay. Hey, look at that. Hey, that boy good. So anyway, I go to buy me I like Bud Light Limes. I'm a football coach, so I drink cold beer, right? I go in there and I get my Bud Light Lime, and the lady stares at me and she says, ID. Foolish me. The convenience store is right around the corner from where I live. So I didn't take my ID because I just turned 51. And so she looks at me and she says, ID. And I said, really, ma'am? I'm 51. Really? And she looked at me and she grabbed a beer. She put it on the counter. She said, sir, I can't sell you this. So I don't get upset. I say, okay. So I just jog because I'm only a couple minutes from the store. Excuse me. So I jog back to the house, run upstairs, get my ID, jog back. Now, by the time I get back, it's like 3 people in line. Well, I'm rude. Like I went to be my rooting like I used to be in high school. I just walked right up front and put my ID on the glass. She looked at my ID. She talked to the little lady next to her. She went to go. She put it back up in a container. In a cupboard. So she went to go get it. And she put it back. I waited till the day was gone. And she said, sir, you look so young. Maybe you need to grow a beard. And I looked at her and I said, it took me 51 years to get here. So I'm trying it, I don't know. I don't grow facial hair very well. I don't grow hair up top very well either. You can see that, but I don't grow facial hair like that. So, but I'm trying to see what it look like, everything like that. So I'm just trying to see what my peers think. Talk to me, fellas. Let me get my Carlton on. Hey, Brian.
Hey, everybody. This could be your next head coach or coordinator. This personality right here. This is what you're looking at.
I tell everybody, I like to make jokes. I like to laugh and joke with everybody until it's time to get serious about the game called football, which is practice time from 3 to 5 or whenever we practice, or on game day. Then I'm the guy you really don't want to socialize with because I'm focused on the task at hand, which is winning. Let me say something real quickly, Brian. I've been watching all the shows. I've been hearing you guys. And I personally don't think we have enough dogs in the fight. What do we send? 2, possible 3 schools every year to the playoffs between FCS, Division II, NIA, while other schools send plenty. So when we're done, they keep moving and we're upset. So we're pointing fingers. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. I seen in the chat where some guy said coach should have made adjustments. Well, yeah, I'm not on that staff, so I don't know. But I'm just speaking as a coach in general that, we don't have enough. So I think what we need to do as HBCUs is sit down with our ADs, president, SIDs, write a letter to the NCAA or whoever, what have you, and say, hey, we need to know what we need to do to get more teams in. For example, the Mountain West Conference is one of the weakest conferences out there in Division I. Everybody knows it, but yet they send 5 teams every year So if 2 of their teams get knocked off, they still got 3 teams. The SEC is probably the most powerful conference out there, everybody knows, and they're gaining 2 more teams this year. And if they get 2 or 3 knocked off, they still got 4 teams going. If we get 1 or 2, we're all hoping on that 1. If that 1 gets knocked off, we're like, oh man, dang it, But if we still had 3 more teams going, then we still got a reason to keep Horion. And right now, we're all upset. Kenneth Berry did a great job. You don't go back-to-back 10-0s and not be, not be a great coach. Everything's sort of like that. Yeah, he lost in the first round 2 years in a row, but once again, that's a small part of the big picture. He's doing a great job for Benedict. I don't know if he'll leave or not. That's up to Kenneth and his wife. The coach across the street at Allen, he's doing a great job. The other guy, NCCU, Trey Oliver, I think that's his name. He's doing a great job. All these schools we were patting on the back of promoting, and we need to continue to pat and promote them. They're doing great jobs out there. We just need more teams. If we have more teams, we're not even talking about this right now. We're talking about who's up next. Who's up next?
Here's the thing about more teams, Coach. The one sport where the system is unbalanced because you have different rules and criteria on every level is football. And we have to get people more educated about that. Because you have the let me back up. You've got the Power 5 that play on a particular level and do things a certain way, meaning this college football playoff thing. Then you have the rest of FBS, which is like half of all Division I teams, right?
Yes,
they do their own thing. They have all these bowls. They do their own thing. Then you have FCS, which is I'm not calling them the bottom half, but let's say another half of all Division I teams. They have their own format and playoff system, right? Oh, and then within that group, you have 2 conferences, MEAC and the SWAC, who do their own thing. So we reside and exist, and then you have Division II, which does their own thing. Division II, they do their whole ranking and criteria completely different than how the FCS does their playoff criteria. So now I've got
different than them.
No, I'm just talking NCAA. But sure, if you wanted to talk about NAIA, they got their own criteria. So again, if I'm just talking NCAA, I've got Division II, I've got Division FCS, I've got HBCU, I've got the Group of 5 and all of FBS. I got 5 different levels, and that's just because money has gotten involved. It's a case of trying to find your way into this. This is why I am one of those people that I finally got on board and said, we got to push this Celebration Bowl thing. Hey, I'm not going to poo-poo anybody going to the playoffs, but I'm pushing the Celebration Bowl because in a system and a world that is as completely screwed as college football is, we got to cut our own piece of this pie. And the way we've cut our piece of the pie is via the Celebration Bowl. And so it pays money. It pays a nice chunk of money compared to other things that you get from FCS. Hell, you don't even make money unless you're one of the top 2 teams in the FCS. So everybody who played playoff games, let me look at the numbers. Richmond had to pay $30,000 to $40,000 just to host that game. You know how many people they had at that game in Richmond? 7,000 people, maybe. 7,000.
I don't think it was that many. I think it was closer to 5.
I bet you.
I saw the attendance for all the FCS games.
Richmond probably took a loss financially in terms of what it cost to run that game, what it cost to bid on that game. But hey, there's prestige in hosting a home game, I guess, and they can afford to take a little bit of a loss because they're in the playoffs. They use it as a recruiting tool, as a selling tool, and it helps out further down the road. They can afford that. Their boosters step up, and they pay the money. So I don't know, man. Coach, I think we just have to appreciate and celebrate when we can, but
I don't think we're unappreciative. I just think that, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people out there. I don't want to put number, but I know it's a lot saying, hey, we just need more teams. If we get more teams, we won't be in this situation. Because right now, tennis they're throwing tomatoes at tennis, and I think that's wrong. Okay, because they're like, oh, 2 years ago he goes undefeated, then he's out. I mean, I've been listening to YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's not fair. But once again, if we still had 3 or 4 other teams playing, I don't even think tennis would even be a factor. Where he's getting ready to go, what's his next step? He's going to stay at Benedict, or is he moving on to Southern or South Carolina? That's not even a factor right now. We're focusing on the other teams. Like right now, some of us are getting ready to watch the SWAC Championship, and we're all getting ready for the Celebration Bowl. But if we just had more teams out there, I mean, once again, the Mountain West, they're a pretty weak conference in the Division 1A football, and they send 5 or 6 teams, 5 or 6. So and we total
and
we get
schools are leaving. That's why schools are trying to get out of the FCF. Let me say it right, the FCS, to jump into a conference up in the FBS because they know that there's money up in them their hills.
Yes, yes.
We're not trying to compete for a national championship because we know that the Power 5 or 4, they're not going to let us be a part of that. But we can go get some money from these bowls by being a part of that bowl system and maybe being the 4th place team in a 12-team conference.
You're right, Brian. All I'm saying is that we just need more teams. We get more teams. We have more to cheer for. I think we'd be a little more happier. We support our teams, no matter what university it is, Howard, Langston, Lincoln, whatever it is. I think we would support that team because we seem to support ourselves pretty good. That's why I love HBCU football and sports. So we support one another. I just think if we can get some more teams in there, because let me see, last year we had who we had last year? We had Benedict. Of course we had, help me out. Benedict, and who else went?
Fayetteville and Union went on the Division 2
Union.
level, and no one went on the FCS level.
And then Langston is really the only one I know from the NAIA level. Yeah,
Langston hasn't made it since COVID.
Yeah, we ain't been there in a while. So right now we got 2 teams that we're saying, okay, we're getting excited for, and when they get beat, we now we want to blame the coaches. And so you should have made a coach change. You should have did this. But if we have more teams,
we sent our best though. It's not like we just sent any old body. So we didn't send the 4th place team. We sent the best team that we had in Division 2 football, and we sent one of the 2 best in FCS football.
Okay, but see, can we get a 2 and a 3 to go with that? Because the Mountain West, they don't send their best. They send 6.
Here's the thing. Y'all remember that song, But Your Best Wasn't Good Enough, so here we are back where we were before? With Tebow Bryson.
Yeah, I remember that song. And I truly understand. All I'm saying, as a coach from this level, someone who played HBCU football and now who has coached at the level and now trying to get back in at the level, I just truly feel like we need more teams. If we can get more teams, and we can't just say we're going to take 16. Of course, now we have to get allocated and permission. So we need to get our ADs, our presidents, SIDs, to write a letter to someone and say, hey, we would like to take our 3 teams from the CIAA, the SIAC, NAI level, so that'll give us 3. That's 9 now. 9 we got. So if 1, 2, 3 get knocked off, we still got 6 teams to vote for. But we send 2 possible 3, and we get knocked off, and we're all angry and we're upset, and now we're blaming coaches, and they should have made these kind of adjustments, and they should have did this. And I'm like, once again, if we still got teams to vote for, we're not even worried about that. We're not even worried about that because, hey, they lost. Who else we got out there? Oh, we got Norman University and Drew University. And okay, hey, let's go. Let's go. Come on, fellas. But if we only get 2 or 3, then we get upset real quickly. So I'm just saying, let's just go ahead and we got to somehow, some way come up with more teams to put in there. Once again, Benedict did a great job this year. NCCU did a great job this year. There was other teams out there who deserved, like Fayetteville, they did a good job. Tuskegee did a good job. There's other teams out there that did good jobs, but you go 7-3 and go home. You can go 8-2 and go home. Come on. But at the other level, they can go 9-2, 10-1, and they get to play. They got 4 teams right now that's undefeated. They're in the top 4, but you still got 18 teams below them. They're getting ready to go bowling.
Hey, Coach, speaking of adjustments, because we've only got limited time because we've got an action-packed show today.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the games that you were able to watch on yesterday. I know you said you got in the the Bayou Classic, and I think you said you also got a Turkey Day on Thursday also. And so let's start with Thursday, and you don't have to be long on that one since that involved my alma mater. We got our tails kicked.
You
but
talk about how bad they got ran out the field. And,
I mean, 6 points against
on y'all too.
6 points against two FCSs this season, and you disrespected the Crimson Pipers at the same time. Talk to me about Thursday.
Thursday game. I thought. Let me say this: Alabama State is a D1. Tuskegee's a D2. They beat a D2 how they were supposed to. Okay, let me say that one. Two, Tuskegee looked, and I hope I'm not insulting you, AD, or anybody else that loves Tuskegee, but they look lethargic. Let me say why. Because they didn't look like the team. I've watched Tuskegee 3 times this year, and we talked about this a week or two ago. They got one of the best running cores out there in HBCU football. I didn't see that. That offensive line blocks well. I didn't see that. Their defense has enthusiasm. I didn't see that. Kind of like when they played one school, when they played Alabama A&M, and I was like, hey, they're looking good out there. Everything's sort of like, even though they lost that game, they were still looking good. It's from the start. I think my man Bryan mentioned it to me from the kickoff, when old boy ran the kickoff back, it's almost like they just put their head down. And once again, they got a good coach. We know that. They got a good team. We know that. But they just didn't show up. They didn't show up. And I was kind of disappointed because I was expecting a really good game on Turkey Day. Really, I was. And we didn't get that. We got, like you said, they got ran out of stadium. They got their butt kicked. Yesterday's game, the Bayou Classic, that's always a good game. I can't ever remember a not good game when you say, God dang, man, that was lopsided or something like that. I mean, like the both coaches said, you throw the records out the game, they both 5-5, everything sort of like that. And we all know what happened to Dooley, and old boy took over, and it just found out yesterday. I guess he was at Grambling a couple years ago and he won it, and now he's at Southern and he won it. So kudos to that brother there. I thought it was a good game. I thought it was a real good game. The one kid, now we all know, we talked about this. I think Grambling has the best running core of HBCU this year. Okay. And I didn't see the core yesterday. I saw my man Chalk. Chalk looked good. Chalk looked good yesterday. I mean, he already had 100 at the half. I mean, that brother was running. He was representing his G. Okay. The quarterback, he made some mistakes here and there, but for the most part, they did what they're supposed to do. They ran the ball, so they looked good pretty much there. Southern played a new quarterback. I wasn't familiar with that guy, but I guess that's the one that everyone kept saying Duty should have been playing. I thought he threw the ball well. I saw one time, and I know people talked about it, where when he threw that interception. And I said, okay. People said, he just hurried up and threw the ball. But let's rewind the tape. Rewind the tape, yellow boy. Now, stop. Push play. What do we got? 1, 2, 3 guys in that brother's face. Come on, man. He's nervous. He's scared. And them some big boys coming at him. I mean, by the time he took his second step back, go watch this play. By the time he took his step back and got that ball to his ear like you're taught, he had 3 people in his face. So, yeah, he could have just ate it, and that probably would have been the most reasonable thing. But who knows what happens in that moment of second? I can't say. I played quarterback. I was an option quarterback, but I can't say. So you got 3 people in your face. You're like, and he just throws it. Guy picks it, goes the other way. And the coach ripped him. And, of course, the camera's sitting right there just watching the coach eating him up like crunching much. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. But, hey, check this out. After you rip the quarterback for throwing that ball, coach, you're a good guy. You've been in this game 30-some years. Go get the O-line. See, a lot of people give them guys passes. I don't. Probably why I have success with them. I get any big butts. I'm thinking, fellas, that wouldn't have occurred if you would have done your job. Southern's got a good line. Now, I'm thinking South Carolina State probably has the biggest line. I'm not going to say the best, but they're the biggest line I've seen so far this year in black college football. I could be debated, but I don't think so. Them brothers are huge up front. And I'm going to say Southern probably has the next biggest line. Now, they're not on the same level as South Carolina State, but they got big boys. So that shouldn't have happened, but it did. Okay, so he threw the pick. They scored. Later in the game, when it was 22-27, if I'm not mistaken, I know I'm talking fast because we got to move fast. Grambling was moving towards the end zone, and they were. If you go back and watch this game, I saw it from the beginning. They were setting up this play. They were setting up the RPO with the quarterback. Because I'm thinking, why don't they just go ahead and just fake it and run around the corner? So first quarter goes by. Second quarter goes by. Third quarter goes by. Fourth quarter, by now, the defense coordinator, he's telling this guy, they're getting ready to make this play. So outside backer DN waiting, and look what happened. When he faked to the running back and he came across, old boy was waiting for him and wrapped him up like a Christmas gift. Okay? So, boom. Then 2 plays later, now you ain't got no Randy Moss or Michael Irvin or Calvin Johnson out there. Your guy ain't 6'6". I don't know how tall his brother was, but
I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah. So me myself, when we're that close, Brian, I teach my receivers how to cut off the DB. You know, it's kind of like you turn your back to him, you nudge him a little bit, and you stick your hands up. And we practice that.
Kind of like boxing out in basketball.
Thank you. Boxing out in basketball, yes, sir.
Yeah,
so,
DB and the wide receiver were about the same height. If you look
about
at
the same height,
I didn't see any different. And they tried to throw it up there like he was going to moss him. I was like,
and then he lobbed it. He didn't throw it, you know, or give me a route like boom, break down, come back to the corner. He stood there and he just lobbed it, and I was like, Now I'm not going to blame Hugh, but he is the head coach. There was like 3 plays in a row that just went bad for Grambling, and I was like, wow. And then Southern got the ball back, and I think they ran it once, twice, then they kneeled on it because they knew they had enough time. Congratulations, Southern, for the big win. I don't know what they're going to do with their head coaching spot. Me, myself, I would say give it to the guy right there. He's proven. He's from Louisiana. He coached at both schools. He knows the quorum down there. He knows the coaches. He can recruit. You know, and that's what you need at a school like that. But that's just me speaking. I thought it was a good game, though. You know, I was pleased. I mean, I was kind of distraught with them 3 plays. It was like 3 bad plays in a row. And I'm thinking, come on, Huey, you coached in the league, brother. This is year 2 for you. You got to get on it. And then I'm hearing that he's about to retire, and I'm thinking, huh? Really? Okay, hey, you know, everybody do their own thing. You know, that's on him. But I thought it was good football, really. I think those 3 plays there's what stick out to me is those 3 plays right there, the RPO, the lob, and then the missed tackle, then the missed block. Chalk sticks out. I mean, that brother there was, man, he was on point. I mean, he was on point.
Coach, let me get to one maybe final question here, and it was a question that a lot of people were talking about as it related to maybe the Benedict game and the North Carolina Central, but it had to do with the offensive line. And, you know, building an offensive line, I don't know if and I think a lot of people seem to think that, HBCUs don't have good, strong offensive lines, or they're not as good as, say, a Richmond or Lenoir-Rhyne. Being someone who all year you've been watching offensive lines throughout HBCUs, and, of course, your background is in offensive line play, how would you evaluate offensive line play overall among the HBCU teams that you've seen? I mean, would you compare it and say it needs work, it's good, it just needs some fine tuning? What's your evaluation if you could generalize it as best? And I know that's hard, but maybe if you just said at the FCS level, you know, what would you say the offensive line play is like?
We've had very good offensive linemen come from the HBCU level, make it to the highest level. This year alone, the group that sticks out is South Carolina State. Them brothers is 320, 350 across the top with good feet. Okay, I hope all 5 of them get opportunity to play on Sunday because I think they're that good. Southern has some big boys, and they're young. I was looking them up there. There are a lot of sophomores and juniors. They need some work, but they're good. Tuskegee's got some big boys. I don't think it's offensive line play. Yeah, they make mistakes. We're human. We do make mistakes. We give up sacks, we give up blocks. We get our butts chewed. We go out there, we block. But to say that our offensive line play is down compared to a Lenoir-Rhyne or compared to someone else, I haven't seen Lenoir-Rhyne, but I've been watching us. For the last 2 years, I've been just steady on HBCU football, and I've seen very good offensive line play. So I'm not going to let the big fellas take the fall for us not moving forward. Not going to point no fingers at nobody, but you dang sure not going to point them at the big fellas in the trenches because I've only seen 2 schools. I remember calling A.D. saying, you can't play with these little sons of guns, you know, and both of those, they're small schools and both of those jobs are open. But those are only 2 schools that I've seen with little, and when I say little guys, I'm talking 235, 260s. Can't play with those guys. Just sorry. They got to be D linemen if they're for Norman. I can't speak for next school, but for me, if you're not 300 plus, you can't play for me. So I saw 2 schools with little bitty guys. Other than that, everybody, Grambling. I just said Grambling got the best running core of HBC football, and all them guys are under 300. They're all 280, 290, but they move well, got good feet, got good hips, got good hand placement. You know, so some people don't like the big 300-pound guys like I do. Obviously, Coach Pugh does. But, yeah, I think our O-line play is just as good as anybody's. I think that we just need and I hate to get off subject, brother, because I know we're running out of time, but we just need more teams. We have more teams in the playoffs. We're not having this conversation. We just need more teams. But our offensive line play is just as good. We got some very good O-line coaches out there, and I think that we're not going to put the scapegoat on the big fellas in the trenches. Even on the defensive line beside the ball. I mean, Benedict got two guys that are like 5'9", 230, but they dogs. They go get it. And one of them's a freshman out of Georgia. They say he was like the strongest kid in Georgia last year or something like that. I mean, so our trench play is okay. We might be a little lacking in the quarterback play or secondary, but our trench play is okay. And that's coming from a guy with 25 years, 10 years as a head coach, 38, 7-1 as a head coach. That's my analysis, and I'm sticking to it. I know we got to go. Hey, AD, mic drop. Ding.
Hey, Coach, SWAC Championship Game is on Saturday. It's in Tallahassee, Florida A&M, Prairie View. So we'll maybe, you know what I'll do? Maybe I'm gonna send you some tape to look at, and then maybe get you on one of our pregame shows to kind of give us some analysis on what to look for in this game upcoming. So then we'll maybe talk about it, get you on one of the pre-shows. How about
remember that movie Soul Plane, and Kevin Hart asked Method Man, he said, go get it. And he said, oh, can't do it. Puffy already got it. So what I'm trying to say is that how Tallahassee get to hold it?
Well, because
I always thought it was at Jackson State.
No,
That's right.
no. Okay, so we'll just stick around. We'll explain
the 8 o'clock hour.
Yeah, we'll explain the history and the way the SWAC does it. It's the home team gets the school with the best record amongst the two divisions. Of course, division winner with the best record gets to host the championship, and we'll talk about what all comes with that, the history behind that. We'll talk about that but don't hate on the championship coming to Tallahassee, Coach. No, I'm not hating, but I'm just. I always thought it was in Jackson. I always thought it was Jackson because I thought they had the biggest stadium of HBCU, so I figured they would host it in Jackson. So when you said Tallahassee, I was like, oh wow, okay, cool.
That's just because Jackson won it.
You about to give me a heart attack, boy. I don't say
no. I'm not hating on Willie Simmons and his boys. Hey, tell you what though, you better tell Moose to show up. He's gonna have a big play in that game. You better tell me.
He'll be there, Coach. Don't worry about it. My quarterback will show up. My quarterback will show up, Coach. Don't worry about it. He'll show up.
Hey, I will get with y'all in the middle of the week, and definitely I'm going to watch the game, and let's do this again next week. Hey, hold on. Do wop. Do wop. All
right, we love you, Coach.
All right, love y'all too. See y'all later, brothers.
Follow at Coach Farasi. Follow Coach on Twitter, at Coach Farasi is where you can find him. Let's take a short break, because on the other side, we're going to talk with a former Texas Southern player and coach who is now coaching in the Division II playoffs. We're going to talk to him about his team and some of his HBCU memories and things of that nature. But we're going to get an interesting perspective on the Division II playoffs and just playoff football in general, as his team is still alive in the playoffs. So we'll talk to him coming up on the other side. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and A.D. We'll be back in just a minute after these words.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Brian Fulford.
A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and A.D. here, and let's get ready to bring in our next guest. He is the head coach of the Valdosta State Blazers, but before that, he is SWAC because he's a former Texas Southern defensive lineman and a former Texas Southern coach, and so we like to extend the congratulations to Coach Jackson. And Coach, how you doing this evening?
Bryan, A.D., really good, man. Glad you guys would have me on, and I'm a proud TSU Tiger in my core.
See, that's what he's SWAC, folks. That's why like, why you got a coach from Valdosta? Oh, he's SWAC first. So we had, this the HBCU diaspora. We had to bring him in, and he's doing big things in his second year over at Valdosta State. Before we get into talking about this season, which you guys are having a great season, I had a big win on Saturday in the Delta. Let's kind of talk a little bit about your experience and your time back at Texas Southern, where you were a defensive lineman, and then forward that a little to your coaching career at Texas Southern, where I believe the last time Texas Southern, SWAC Championship week, so Texas Southern won the title when you were part of that staff. Talk a little bit about that time at Texas Southern.
Yeah, well, I played for a guy named Bill Thomas, man, and Coach Thomas was, in my opinion, he was legendary. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was legendary. Coach Thomas really believed in that track, man. You were gonna run that 200, whether you were a lineman, a DB or whatever. He was gonna put us on that track first, and so I transferred into Texas Southern. It was already a really good family there, man. We had guys like Cortez Hankton, who played in the NFL for a little bit, and Oliver Celestine. Those guys are already there building something. And they let me in. They let me in as a transfer guy, a guy that was from Houston. I just kind of walked up, man, over the Christmas break. I didn't want to be at Louisiana Monroe anymore. I said, man, I know I can go play at TSU and be home. And, man, I went. Coach Thomas, he offered me a scholarship. And my playing career was average, man. I was not great by any means. I didn't start a lot. I just played here and there. But I had a really good time as a player and a student at Texas Southern. And so I started coaching in 06 at A&M Kingsville and then Trinity Valley. And in 08, I had the opportunity to come back as a coach at Texas Southern. And so for me to come back to Houston, where I'm from, to come back to a place where I played, it was a no-brainer. And, man, I took a job and didn't even know what I was going to coach. I was just so happy that Johnny Cole was the coach at the time. He offered me a job. I just went to the office and was like, man, I'm in here in the suit. I'm ready to work. I'm from Houston. You need me. And man, he was fortunate to give me a job. We went on a run, man. I ended up coaching tight ends and then moved over to the defensive line in 09. We went on a run in 09 where when I got to TSU, they were coming off of being 4-40. And so the coach that we were replacing replaced Coach Thomas. And so there was a 4-year time in there where they were 4-40. And I remember my first year, we won 4 games. We went 4-8. And we played like Shaw out in this classic game in California. And we won. Man, we won 4 games. I thought they was going to build a statue of us like as a staff, like because we had won as many games as they won in the 4 years. And at Texas Southern is where I think my coaching philosophy, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it came into play because we ended up going 6-5 in 2009, and then in 2010 we won the SWAC Championship at 9-3, but we started off 1-3, and when we lost to Tuskegee, I heard y'all talking about Tuskegee earlier. We lost to Coach Slater, man. We played at this classic game down in Mobile, and they belly G'd us to death. And
old famous Billy G.
Yeah, man. Like we thought we could stop it, and we did for a little bit, and then we turned the ball over, and so we ended up losing. We were 1-3, and we had to go on an 8-game run to win the SWAC, and we were able to do that, and we finished 9-3, and holding that trophy up in Birmingham was a really special deal. And so I learned a lot. We won the championship, and then the head coach gets let go 2 months later. And we go from this major high to this major low, just as a staff. And I was able to stay on with Coach Ramsey, who was the interim. And that's where I became a coordinator. Coach Ramsey, he entrusted me with the defense. We had just finished number 1 in the country in all the FCS in total defense. And then he gave it to me. And I was like, well, I can't be worse than number 1. And so we ended up finishing number 1 the following year, with no scholarships. They didn't give us any scholarships. I played with 7 walk-on D linemen. It was just a rough deal, but our kids really responded. So we didn't win a lot of games. They moved on from Coach Ramsey, and I jumped off into, the next 10 years of just trying to find my way in this coaching business.
Well, I tell you, Coach, you got the secret. If you're able to pull off a number 1 team defense like that, then I'd love to hear the sauce. Did you ever look back and say, okay, this is what we did? I mean, when you kind of think back, what was it in particular that you were able to get out of that team? I hate to say with its deficiencies, but I mean, look without scholarship players, so to speak.
Yeah, no, man. Coach Ramsey had taught me the system in 2009. And, man, Kevin Ramsey, I think, is one of the best defensive-minded coaches out there. He's retired now, living in Arizona. But I was a D-line guy, and he taught me the whole defense. He made me learn it from front to back. You get a lot of D-line guys, when the coverage part starts talking, they get up and go do something else. Man, that man forced me to stay in there and learn. And so because I knew the scheme inside out like he did, then it was a smooth transition, and our players already knew the scheme. And so I just think we had a lot of guys with a lot of fight, and we were able to keep that bad situation together for the most part and make it through an 11-game season. And those kids, they just kept fighting. And so we were losing games kind of like Iowa, right? But we weren't winning. We were playing good defense, but we weren't winning. And so the secret is there's no secret. You just got to get you some guys that want to fight and be together, and you got to have a system that works for you, and you know how to fix it if something breaks.
Appreciate that. Go ahead, Drew.
All right, Coach Jackson, first of all, thanks for joining us today. And when Dr. Cavil asked me this morning, would I mind having you on, I was like, hell yeah, I would love to have Tremaine on. And I'm going to tell you a secret, I live down here not too far from you. You go over in Valdosta, Georgia. I used to live in Tifton, Georgia. Now I'm over in Thomasville. I'm in Thomasville, Georgia.
Gotcha.
Working. So quietly, I've been watching you at Valdosta State, being the first African-American head coach at such a, let's be real, talk about a blue blood in the Gulf South Conference. Valdosta State is a blue blood within the Gulf South Conference and in Division II football. So with all that being said, Coach Jackson, how has it been being at Valdosta State? And I don't mean just being the first African-American there. Now, if you want to touch on that, you can touch on that. But coming in and being given the keys to a blue blood program on the Division II level, and although you finished above 500, 6-5 at Valdosta State is not acceptable. anybody around who's been around know that that's just like a 6 and 5 at Tuskegee on the HBCU level. Just want to put that out there. So just kind of go through it, and then how you righted the ship and gotten to where you are in year 2.
Yeah, AD, and you know, you in Thomasville, so I got to get down there and get them the shrimp and grits from a place I normally go to down there. So I'll be down there as soon as the season get over with for us, whenever that may be, to do that. But we did go. We had less than 500 record. We went 5 and 6. And so
I had it backwards. I apologize.
And so, you know, man, when you're at Valdosta State, right, you would think in Valdosta that we're at Alabama or Georgia, because this is called title town, and you know that. You're close. Like, if you're not winning a title, you got to go. And I saw it happen with one of the high school coaches here. Joker went 5 and 5, lost in the playoffs. Man, you got to go. And so when I got the job at Valdosta State, I sat in the office. I flew in. I sat in the office. I opened the books up, and I went, man, this ain't what everybody think it is. And so I had a job in Colorado. I was smoking cigars by the mountains every night. It was a good deal. There was really no expectation at that school. We had went 8 and 2. I thought I was going to get that statue again out there. And taking this job, you say, man, I want to be able to win a national championship, because there's never been anybody that looked like me to win a national championship in Division II. And so I said, man, where can I go? And when this opportunity came up, you had to take it. But what people don't know about Valdosta State, as blue blood as people think it is, the blood is still normal red here. And we've got our issues just like everybody else. From the doc earlier, Dr. Cavil, I just said, man, when I got here, Valdosta State, we only had 15 scholarships. We're not fully funded.
Pause. Say that again.
Valdosta State is not fully funded. We have less than half, or we had less than half of what it was. And that was because we're enrollment driven. And so enrollment's going down post-COVID because kids are going to school online. Then the money gets taken from somewhere. It gets taken from athletics. And so I tell people this, and I'm brutally honest, right? I got the Valdosta State job at its worst point. Like, it had never been this bad. But you can't say that when you're in the season. You better do what it is that you need to do to get some wins. And so we went through that 2022 season. I think we got it up to 17.2 scholarships. And that's what we played on. And
that's still not half.
No, and we look like a 17.2 scholarship team. I remember standing out playing Virginia Union, and Coach Parker was like, man, I went to my people and told my people what y'all were doing here, and we came down here in 3 buses and this, that, and that. He was talking about all the resources that Virginia Union had stepped up to the plate and gave them. And in my mind at the 50, I was like, man, I wish you talked to our people. We ain't got none of them. We do well with what we have, but the harsh reality of it is we haven't moved into 2023, right? But still, this still is Valdosta State. So you still got to win. And so we went through the season, and I really thought we were going to get fired. I thought I was going to get fired. You read some of the messages, and when you're the first black man,
I can attest to that, because I'm down here, and the same TV coverage and newspaper coverage that you get in Valdosta, I get over here in Thomas County.
Well, when you're the first black man, and people already kind of thought this was an experiment, and so okay, they just came through George Floyd and all this stuff. Let's just hire a brother and see how it works. Now, I will say this: Valdosta State gave me the opportunity to win this position. It was a fair and square competition, because sometimes when you interview at places in the coaching profession, we know who's interviewing, right? And so I was able to come here and win the job. But man, to some people in this community going 5 and 6, they wasn't interested in no more experiment. We need a guy. And my staff got questioned, and just some of the things that we saw. We had a guy step up to the plate and say, hey, we didn't give you a fair shot. Here's a little bit more money. Let's see what you can do with it. And man, I was so grateful, because I knew what other folks didn't know. I knew where we were deficient, and if we could fix those deficiencies, then I felt like we could be successful. And so that's what we did. For a whole year, all we did was recruit. We recruited everybody that we could find that could play our style of football and do it our way. But before we get to how we turned it, the biggest thing we did was when I got to Valdosta State, we had the worst GPA in all athletics. So we were winning games. We wasn't going to school. And so I think you got to be a student athlete. When I got to Valdosta State, we didn't do any community service. And I knew we hadn't done any, because when football teams do community service, people put that on social media. It's a big deal. And so all you got to do is check somebody's Twitter and see if they're doing community service, and they're not, because you don't see it. And so we were only doing one of the three things that I thought was very important. And it's no knock to any other coach, but for me, if you're not going to school, if you're not doing community service, you can't expect to have a good football team consistently, especially with the high turnover that you have at a place like Valdosta State. Because if you win, more than likely you're going to have some opportunities as a coach. And so we got those things right along with recruiting. We posted the highest GPA in program history in the spring of 2023. We broke the community service record to where they won't even give us credit anymore as a school for community service. So we just have to put out our own graphics. Once we did those two things, I went into the summer and I told our staff, we'll be fine when it comes to football. Now, this is a nobody team. We didn't know. Nobody knows nobody. We started fall camp with 87 new players. Wow. And we were able to gel and get guys to truly love each other and work. And we put them down through it now. One thing about a Tremaine Jackson coach team, they're going to be tough. Because I'm just a line coach. Like, I don't believe all that standing up, looking pretty with wristbands on. I don't believe in none of that. I believe in getting hit in the face and doing some hitting in the face. And so, man, we put them through it in camp, and I knew at that moment that we were going to be okay. And if you look at our season, our kids have won a lot of tough games. And on top of, man, we're in the Gulf South Conference. Mm-hmm. I've been to a lot of leagues. Man, this thing here is a grinder. And then you got to come back in the playoffs and play against your own conference again. Man, I was in Region 4 in Colorado, and I was like, oh, cool, we'll play Central Washington. Ain't no problem. Oh, cool, we got Fort Lewis this week. We're probably going to get them twos in. Here, man, we play to the end, and this league is loaded. And so we were able to turn it by doing those things. But the success we're experiencing right now is truly because of our staff and our players. They bought into a vision that an old D-line coach had. And they truly love each other, man, and we're willing to do the things right off the field, so we know we'll do right on the field.
Coach, you said you had 17.2. You started at 15, got to 17.2. If you don't mind, if you could, where are you at right now? As far
a little bit over 24.
So you're still short of the full 36 that are allowed on the Division II level.
Mm-hmm. And you'll hear us say "in spite of" a lot. Like if you ever see us tweet anything, it'll say ISO. We talk about "in spite of," because in spite of not having all 36, what we figured out is you don't need 36. You need to be fully cultured. You don't need to be fully funded. You need to be fully cultured. And if you fully cultured, it'll take care of the fully funded piece. And I'll say this: all the coaches before me weren't at 36. It's just that I got it at the lowest. And so it's we've taken that in spite of mindset, man, and we realize that if we're fully cultured, it'll make up for them 12 or 14 scholarships that we miss.
Well, I think I'll just looking at some of the comments in the chat.
Can I ask a question in there, Drew, about while we're talking about that? I'm curious, compared to your rivals or your opponents within the conference, are many of them at the full 36, or are they in similar?
They are. Everybody's at it. I think us and another school are below it, but the other teams, West Florida is a rival for us. West Georgia is a rival for us, major rival, peach basket rival. West Alabama. Here's what I learned in my first year. Everybody's a rival for Valdosta State. We've been whooping folks for so long until when they beat us a year ago, it was like, whoa. Y'all smoking cigars after a regular season win? That's tough. But, Yeah, but West Florida, West Georgia, and then Delta has become a rival as of late.
All right. One thing that I've seen has been kind of going in the chat. A couple people were questioning about the facilities that you have at Valdosta State, and if you would, you've been through the HBCU diaspora. What would you equate your facilities at Valdosta State to compared to HBCUs that a lot of people who are watching us know about?
Yeah, I would say our facility. If we just compared it to the SWAC, which I know really well, other than Alabama State, we're probably better. I think Alabama State has some elite facilities, stadium buildings. I think we might be slightly ahead of Prairie View just because of how the space that we have. But I think they got a really nice deal too. But other than that, facility-wise, I just think our facility was built in 2007. And it was ahead of its time in 2007. And so I often joke with people and say, I got an office that's got 3 big windows and I can look outside and 2 practice fields, a grass one and a turf one. And, we can get a lot of work done in our building. Our kids have meeting rooms. And I've been at places where we were meeting, our offices were under the gym or connected to the gym in some form or fashion. That's not the case here. We do a really good job at that. Do I think we need some upgrades to keep up? Yeah. But what coach you gonna find that don't want something new, right? But I think when it comes in comparison to what I know in the SWAC and where I played, our facility is head over heels where I played, just based on that internal knowledge.
Yeah, and since Bryan threw it out there, compared to the other people in the Gulf South, where do your facilities rate?
Yeah, we're probably middle of the pack. West Georgia's got a beautiful facility. West Florida is building one right now. They're building a stadium, and so we're probably middle of the pack. Delta's got a really nice end zone facility and field. What hurts us is the fact that we don't have our own stadium. We share with the high school, but we do have our own standalone practice facility. And so when these schools like Delta, they have the field and the end zone facility right there, West Georgia, that's what puts us middle of the pack when it comes to that.
All right, go ahead, Bryan.
Coach, if you would, obviously this past weekend or yesterday, I shouldn't say this past weekend because they're still in the weekend, but yesterday you had to travel out to the Delta, out in the Mississippi to the SIP, and you got to win sort of a payback. Your only loss of the year was to Delta State. You had to play them again. This time you had to travel out there. You got the win 38-31. Talk a little bit about not just having to go through that rematch, but life in the Gulf South. I mean, you talked about everybody's a rival, but just, what separates this conference from other Division II conferences that you've been in and maybe other leagues?
I just think the location in which the league lies in the Southeast, you're an SEC country. When a kid transfers from a Mississippi State or an Ole Miss, Delta State going to be right there. When a kid transfers from Georgia and Georgia State, then we're going to be right there. And then when anybody transfers from Florida or either from a Florida school, we're all sitting right there. And so it's so much talent in this area. And then the coaching is superb. Man, you got guys that's been in this league for a long time that's coached a lot of different people. I think Coach Cooley over at Delta was 4-time Coach of the Year. Been in the league 13 years, man. You got a lot of good players, a lot of good talent in this area. And so when you play each other over and over again, it's just, man, it's you got to win the league twice. And that's kind of the running joke amongst the coaches in this league because we're regionalized in Division II. The NCAA wants to stop travel in the first round, so we don't play a true national playoff until you get to the semifinals. So we're all regionalized. Well, we got 3 teams in. So 3 of the 7 teams this year from Region 2 were our teams. So, man, Delta State had to play West Florida again in the first round, and then they had to play us again. And so they didn't even get in their playoff tenure, they didn't even get to play anybody outside of the Gulf South. And so you just look at it, man, and seeing how tough this league is. Beating somebody twice is almost unheard of, because once you play each other, you beat each other up so bad until, you just fighting to get to the next week. So I think this is the toughest league in all of Division II, period, point blank, the end. I'm willing to stand and talk to anybody about that because I've been in the NSIC, I've been in the Lone Star. It's no slight to anybody else, but this league is just rough, man. It would be like people talk about the SEC. No knock on the Big 12, but it ain't the SEC. And so I would say that about the Gulf South. And until you join the league, we got people that won't play people in this league. And I think that's a testament of how tough your league is. Like, I can't get an FCS game. Nobody in the FCS will play us.
I know, fam, you won't.
Yeah, like nobody. I've called. I put it on Football Scoop. I've done everything we could do, and nobody will play us in the FCS. I had one school call back, and they offered me $25,000 to play. Well, the going rate is $80,000. Let's just don't slight me. and so, man, this V with this state in between, it keeps a lot of people uninterested. And it's because of the conference that we play in and the history and tradition of our program.
Yeah, that's tough. I can imagine because there's no gain from it for those FCS pro. Trust me, being someone who's covered and paid attention to FAMU, trust me. I mean, we you catch a lot of flack from people for scheduling D2s, but even the last couple of years when FAMU scheduled Albany State, who had a great team 2 years ago. Not that they didn't this past year, but they were really had a strong team under Coach G. This past year, West Florida. I mean, that's one of West Florida's few losses. That was a tough contest, and I watched that West Florida team, and it was like, y'all don't understand. That team is going to be in the hunt in their division, and so. But if we'd have lost to West Florida, oh my God, everybody would have been on. They've been on Coach Simmons' tail for that one. So that's the danger that you guys at the D2 level present to people. You guys are so good that the risk factor, it's a benefit for D2s, but man, that risk is hard for people at the FCS level to swallow. And you get that, and you got to give up that paycheck too. So you got to deal with the memes.
I paid for this butt whipping.
Yeah, you got to deal with all the memes that'll come if you get whooped that come after that. Yeah. So Lenore Ryan comes up. Now we got a chance in our space to watch. Drew was there. He watched Lenore Ryan against Benedict. Obviously, you're familiar. Well, let me see. You are familiar with Lenore Ryan, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we play them this week.
Okay, so you didn't. That was one of the teams because everybody in the Gulf South doesn't play each other, correct?
Correct. Well, we do in the Gulf South, but they're in the SAC.
SAC.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My mistake. I thought
they
were. Okay. So, so as you get ready for this contest against them, and you got two teams with tradition, how does that breakdown begin? And when you start looking at them, where do you start in terms of your breakdown and analysis of them?
Yeah, well, we had 10 hours to ride back after we won yesterday, and so we started breaking the film down on the bus. And when you see them, they're really good everywhere, man. I mean, you don't get to the Elite Eight or the quarterfinals if you're not good. Like you just don't. You're talking about 8 teams left out of 165, right? So something's good. They got an elite running back. They got one of the best D linemen in the country on this level. And you see it. And their quarterback manages the game really well. And football's a really simple game, man. If you got a quarterback that can manage the game, not turn the ball over, and a defense that can go get it, you got a chance to win. And if your line play, I heard y'all talking about line play earlier. If your line play can sustain the rush on the O-line and you can create a rush on the D-line, I think Benedict has the best 2 ends I've seen on tape just watching them play against Lenore Ryan. I saw Benedict earlier against Shawan. And so I think, right there on the line play, man, you got to be ready. But I thought Lenore Ryan handled the rush. They gave up some sacks, but they also got some sacks. And so they got a complete football team. It'll be fun with both 12-1. They're conference champs. We're conference champs. The key, I think, for us is, one, we're playing in Valdosta, Georgia, which we love to be at home. But two, man, I just like where our team is right now. They're playing with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. You're not going to hear a lot of names on our team because so many guys touch the ball. So many guys are making plays. And what we did do in that recruiting cycle that I was telling you about, we created a lot of depth. And so where people are hurt right now, we were able to plug and play so many people throughout the season until we don't have to lean on that feature back. So we got 5 backs. And so, yes, one guy doesn't get all conference, but we got a lot of guys that are being productive for us, and it's paying off right now. So it should be fun. This is something I've never been a part of before. Getting past as an assistant, I only got to the second round. So being a quarterfinal football team Valdosta State, this is what we do. We've been here 3 times out of the last 5 years. And so it's kind of like, finally, we back at home. Like our AD was like last night, all right, man, I'm getting on the jet. I'll see you on Monday. We got the meeting. And I'm like, well, what happens next, right? But he already knew. And so it's been a fun time for us. Hopefully it'll be a really good football game. Hopefully the weather will be good. I want it to be hot. I want it to be steaming South Georgia hot. AD know what I'm talking about. I want it to be steaming hot. 100 degrees in December, like it was when I interviewed here last December, because we just seem to play better. We
get that on December 2nd, boy. Good Lord.
and Coach, were it not for a game taking place in Tallahassee, same day, about an hour or so from the time you guys would start, I would be there in Valdosta too.
Well, I appreciate that. And you know what? I'm excited for those guys in the SWAC, man. I think Willie Simmons does a really good job. And then Bubba was on the staff when I was leaving Texas Southern. He came on the staff. He was a volunteer first, man. So I'm really excited for those guys. I watch more SWAC games. People talk about the SEC and all that. I watch SWAC games. If there's a SWAC game on, I got some downtime, I'm certainly gonna watch the SWAC, man, because I think there's a lot of unsung heroes in the coaching rooms in that league, and a lot of really good players that deserve some recognition.
Last question that I have for you before we get out of here, Coach, and I know your time is limited. What's the one thing that you miss about the HBCU culture versus the HWCU culture where you're at right now?
Yeah, the pageantry of the band, man, and the whole thing. Man, every Tuesday and Thursday in my office, my secretary, she hears the Ocean of Soul. And I'll go to YouTube, and as I'm watching film and breaking down stuff, man, I'll play that Ocean of Soul playlist. And I love that stuff, man. It was nothing. Our band does a really good job. I think our band is award-winning and do all of that. Man, there's nothing like the Ocean of Soul. And I grew up listening to it. And so for me, it calms me. It gives me a sense of home. I've broken down some of my best tape just listening to the ocean and doing those things. And that's what you miss when you're not in it. You miss the people in the stands. You miss just the classic games. And you honestly miss the people sending you screenshots of people on message boards not knowing what they're talking about, but they talking. and so I miss that, man. I think that's us as a people. I love it. I was messing with Dr. Cavil earlier. We lose recruits sometimes to HBCUs because of that pageantry. So, like, I had to take some recruits, man, to the step show. I go in there and put my hat on, and I'm like, we got the Qs too. We got the Qs and there's Kappas, and so I spend a lot of time defending. You know, when you're on this side of it, and I love my job. I love being at Valdosta State. Don't get me wrong. But, man, I have to put this hat on sometimes and go, man, we got the Qs. It's some AKs here too, and some Deltas and Coleman Love and all of that. And so you miss those things. I remember when I was a player at Texas Southern, Fridays at noon, DJ High C was going to pull up, and you ain't going to class no more. It's over with. And you might have had a 2 o'clock. You wasn't gonna make that 2 o'clock. It was detrimental to book a class at 2 o'clock on a Friday. You know you wasn't going. And so, man, I really miss that. I watch it every time I can. I don't get a chance to go anymore to that stuff because it never works out to where we're off or anything like that. Division II, we don't have a bye week. We're playing straight out. So, but I get a lot of text messages around homecoming and videos. That's the difference. That's the difference. People talk about the money on this side of things and this, that, and the other. Football is football. Like, we play the same brand. I lost to Virginia Union my first year. They got a great football team. But, man, one thing about it, I knew Virginia Union was going back to that homecoming step show, and I wasn't. And I missed that about being in the black college ring.
Hey, Coach, you can take that noon on Friday and insert just about any HBCU.
I was going to say the same thing. Everybody,
name, and it's pretty much going to be the same. It wasn't just Texas Southern, Coach. And,
yeah, I know. I'm just,
you
that's near and dear to mine. But I'm telling you, man, like I used to love. I was at Abilene Christian, and we played Prairie View and all that. I was like, I used to ask the AD, are they bringing the band? Because, boy, if they bring the band, it's just being straight up. And so you miss that stuff. And I watched the Classic the other day on yesterday with Grambling and Southern, just so I could watch the halftime show. Like, I recorded it and watched it on the bus on the way home. And so it's one of those things for me. But I love us. You know what I mean? Like, ain't no secret about that with me. I love us. I might work at Valdosta State. I love Valdosta State, but I love us. And I love how we are in events, man. And so it's a fun deal. When you're a black college graduate, that never leaves you. I think that's taught to us in those classrooms about how we do things. And we try to instill that into our players about where we are, about being at Valdosta State, and try to give them that sense of pride. Because I think nobody does it better than HBCU.
Hey, Coach, I'm turning over to Bryan, but I got to tell you the story along that same line. I work at a non-HBCU university right now, and you could probably put 2 and 2 together when I told you where I live at, which university I work at. Mm-hmm. And somebody in administration asked me one day, like, Drew, what can we do to get the students more involved and to get more interaction with the students on campus? I'm like, y'all do realize I'm the wrong person to ask. I graduated from 2 HBCUs, so my view of college life is very skewed compared to anybody else around here.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, man, it's nothing like it. It's nothing like it. And I will say, people don't know this, Valdosta State has an HBCU feel. Mm-hmm. We're not on the T-shirt. And I always tell people, I said, man, we're not on the HBCU T-shirt. But our demographic and where we are, and you know this, AD, by where we are, man, Valdosta is a predominantly African-American area, especially inner city. The county is more mixed, but inner city, it's us. And so Valdosta State really resembles a HBCU when you go off on campus. I think our people do a good job here of really just taking hold of that and really growing on that stuff. Like I said, we got all the fraternities, all the sororities. There's stuff going on in the middle of campus all the time. And so I think our people do a good job of embracing that.
And just like HBCU, they got a railroad track right there going through the university. Just like a lot about HBCU. I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead, Bryan.
That's funny. No, hey, I got to make sure we give a shout out to a couple of our producer, Mel. She's a Valdosta State grad who works with us. And shout out to Gerald Thomas he covers FAMU. But every time I see him, he talks about Valdosta State, so he's excited for y'all. He was even saying if I didn't have to cover FAM, he's like, I'd be up at Valdosta State. So
tell him just send me a donation. He ain't got to come. Just send the donation and put football on it.
I will tell both of them that.
And don't forget Kippy Tate, who is the SID over there at Valdosta State, used to work at Florida A&M University also.
Yeah. You know, my AD here is a FAMU graduate, Herb Reinhardt.
Oh yeah, he's one of
was
the
a kicker, won a national championship there, and he's in the Hall of Fame there. Man, that's really part of the reason why I wanted to come here, is because he's a little short white dude, but he is a really
he's a rattler. Yep.
Yeah, he's a rattler, man, and he's an advocate for us. And so, in just the student athlete experience, man, my AD, he's retiring, and so you know, shout out to her. We're gonna try to send him out the right way, but really, I want everybody to know he's a FAMU rattler to his core.
Exactly. See those ties. So see when people wondered, you know, why you got the coach from Valdosta? Look, these HBCU ties, they're deep. So you know, shout out to Dr. Cavil for making this happen. And hey, coach, look, we may not have an HBCU in the D2 playoffs, but Valdosta State, we're behind you. The SportsWrap, we're rooting for you.
I appreciate it.
Coach Tremaine Jackson, Valdosta State. That's who we're riding with on this journey through the playoffs.
I appreciate it, man.
You SWAC.
Thank y'all for having me.
Y'all are HBCU. So have a great week this week. You know, great week of health, safety, positive energy, everything that you guys do, and have a great game on Saturday. Okay.
I appreciate y'all, brothers. Y'all let me know if y'all need something my way.
Will do. Thank you for your time.
I'll be in touch, Coach. I'll bite up
yes,
the road.
sir.
All right. Coach Tremaine Jackson, that was awesome. That was awesome, man. Good shout out to Dr. Cavil. We'll get a chance to say thanks to him in a second. Let's take a short break and talk to Doc as we kind of put a bow on the show, talking a little bit about the upcoming SWAC Championship game on Saturday in Tallahassee. 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 Central. We'll talk about that on the other side. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here with Bryan and A.D. We'll be back in just a moment.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em. It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
At Hampton Law, our primary goal is to provide non-traditional yet effective solutions and redefine the approach to client legal concerns. As your trusted legal advisor, we believe in sophisticated, personalized services that eliminate the confusion and complexity sometimes associated with legal matters. Our high standard for client care and concern, coupled with our extensive legal knowledge and skills, make Hampton Law a resource focused on the protection of the client's interest and overall goals. We value our clients and truly enjoy working with them. Visit thamptonlaw.com to conveniently schedule an appointment online. Tamika Hampton Esquire, 1631 Rock Springs Road, Suite 336, Apopka, Florida, 407-494-1471. thamptonlaw.com.
Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Stride K-12 powered schools are ready to put over 20 years of being a leader in online education to work for you. Dive into curriculum design for the online classroom. Team up with state-certified teachers trained in virtual instruction. Take control of your child's education journey. Discover the power of personalized learning with a leader experienced in preparing kids for a future they can be excited about. Take charge. Stride K-12. Enroll now for the fall.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan, A.D, joined by Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Bear with me just a minute, fellas. I'm trying to get these last little things taken care of here. You know, my afternoon games weren't as good as my early. Hey, Drew, how about I hit?
Quit while you was ahead.
No, Drew, I hit 4 out of 5. And the one that I didn't hit was really a flyer on the guy from Kansas City, Valdez-Scantling. I figured after he dropped the touchdown, I figured Mahomes would at least throw the brother some love and at least get him 1 touchdown. He didn't even do that for him. I'm like, man, come on, man. Doc, I'm telling you, if I'd have done that, if I'd have hit that, Doc, I wouldn't be on right now because I'd probably be. I'd be at the store getting some champagne right about now. So I'm just.
No, that's right.
I keep it
yeah, we don't need you to keep the champagne bottles too close because Saturday right here. And sound like y'all ready to have a big party.
I'm trying to figure. I'm looking for deals. I'm looking for deals all week. I'm just trying to figure out how many cases I'm coming up to Tallahassee with. But anyway,
cross the line. Come on over here to Georgia and get some, man.
I may have to. This upcoming Saturday, look at the graphic. There it is. It's the SWAC, the Pepsi SWAC Football Championship presented by GM. Saturday, December 2nd. Kickoff at 3 Central. That's 4 Eastern on ESPN2. The Prairie View you know what's funny about this game, Doc? And I think I'm the only one of the 3. I might have been the only one. I don't even think you or Mike Washington picked Prairie View to come out of the West. I think I was the lone wolf again, and this time I got it right. At the last couple, I told you the last couple of years I was the lone wolf on FAMU, and I came up short there. But this year I got it right on both sides. So I'm gonna beat my chest all week just to let y'all know. I'm just gonna be that guy. But I don't think it's a coincidence that we get the 2 teams that had the 2 returning quarterbacks. You think about that? Isn't that the case?
Yeah, well, it was 3 returning quarterbacks. Unfortunately, one got hurt.
One got hurt,
after
right.
the first game that featured one of the teams that you mentioned, which is Prairie View A&M, and then they were facing Texas Southern University. So there were actually 3. Body, need to make sure they show him some love. Young man got hurt and stuff like that. But one of the things that I told everybody, and it was amazing to me, because a lot of people focused on FAMU and Texas Southern because of the returning quarterbacks. But nobody really said anything about Trayvon Connolly. And while I certainly could understand, he left some desires in terms of his passing game. But I really knew how he worked out. I really know how his family supports him, particularly his dad. And most importantly, he was a kid that came from a really deep winning program in the state of Texas, Duncanville. And anybody that is familiar with the top 20 some high school rankings, Duncanville has been ranked in that the last 5-6 years. The head coach over there, Samples, finally won a championship for one of the first African Americans in like 20-some years, maybe a little longer, that won it at the highest level. And Texas has went to 6A. Last time it was done at 5A when it was the highest level. So credit to Samples, particularly he did it and took a inner city school before that in Dallas to the championship game and didn't get it done. And then he moved over to the Duncanville and got it done. He had lost a couple of close ones from team out here in Houston. So it was literally these battles between Dallas and Houston for the champions for like 5 years straight. And they had lost like 4. One of them he lost that you probably seen because it's played everywhere, where he lost on a Hail Mary at the end of the game. That was
his team.
That's
okay.
to Duncanville, the last second, and everybody thought it was off. And they threw in the end zone, and the guy caught the touchdown. So credit to them in terms of that. So Trezon comes out of that to sum it all up. And so I knew that he would work at a level that would at least put Prairie View in the mix. But I do want to give a shout out to Brian Jenkins Jr. He was a transfer from Alabama A&M. Many people remember him from his father coaching at Bethune-Cookman, your rival over there. I'm sorry, y'all don't like to call it rivals. Y'all in these MEAC programs and post-MEAC teams, y'all got a whole definition that I need to learn, particularly in this HBCU world, in terms of who is.
Especially when you talk about that school on the beach.
Just because you play a team a lot of times, don't mean you're a rival. Just because they close, don't mean you're a rival. Don't be fooled.
I can't keep up with these Jenkins. These Jenkins are everywhere. The
right.
one who plays,
but his son,
seems like he's been in the SWAC for like a decade. And then the coach,
he has did it. But
coach
he
has
came
been
out
coaching for a decade.
And after the Texas Southern Prairie View game, I had the responsibility to come give the trophy in terms of that game. And so he reminded me after I gave him the trophy, he said, I told you, he said, you're a Prairie View alum. Ain't you supposed to do that? I say, man, I just call it like I see it. But congratulations, because you all did it. I didn't see it. And then at the end of the year, he came search me out on Twitter and said, hey, man, he said, look, I told you we're going to do it. I say, promises made, promises kept. I'm proud. Hashtag. Congratulations. Well done. So shout out to the young man, Brian. And he was intricate part of what Prairie A&M Panthers were able to get done, even fighting through injuries to do it. So I want to shout him out. Shout out to my nephew, Corey Cavil. Although he didn't play latter part of the year, he was really key in that victory with two big-time catches that put him in places to score a touchdown and then lead to the field goal, what ultimately decided the tiebreaker against Alcorn State Braves back in September. So shout out to them and a lot of other men, but those some that just came to mind that it'll be interesting to see how it goes down this Saturday.
All right, let's talk a little. I know there's a couple different angles and that we talked offline about trying to go, but let's start with sort of the history of this SWAC championship game, because even for new folks, you heard anybody who listened earlier, Coach Farasi, he and I'm sure he's not the only one who thought that the SWAC championship game was a neutral site game played at Jackson, and because that whole thing brought a lot of eyes into the SWAC. So people will see that the SWAC championship game is in Tallahassee, and they'll be like, why is it in Tallahassee? Why is it being played on a campus? Give a little of the background, Doc, on how we came to the SWAC championship game, and then more so the transition from a neutral site to a campus site.
Great question, and I'm glad the question came up because it was a perfect tie-in. It's wild how that happens in regards to how we plan stuff, and somebody naturally puts the question out there, and you're like, hey, we gonna have it, don't it? So it started in a lot of ways, Dr. James Frank, who now's name is on the building. He was the second commissioner, the longest standing commissioner with a lot of history, but one of the first commissioners to take SWAC to the next level in terms of the leagues across the country, particularly the SWAC and HBCUs, understanding that they needed to have an independent commissioner run the league, and all the things went from. He was commissioner officially from 1983 to 1998. And the reason I bring him up, because he was the reason, and they were looking for expansions. This is the time where you first started seeing expansion, a couple of years after the SEC expanded. Later, the Big 12 expanded, and then everybody, it seems, started seeking expansion in regards to what they did. So at that time, they had Arkansas, Pine Bluff, who was Arkansas A&M, come back to the SWAC. And then you had Alabama A&M joining, which created this unique rival in Alabama that we now recognize between Alabama State and Alabama A&M. As you all know, as FAMU graduates and know the history in terms of SIAC, Not only was Alabama State in the SIAC, but Alabama A&M was one of the longest standing members of the SIAC, and they stayed there until 1999 when they decided to move up under the guidance of Dr. James Frank. Well, right after that, there was a commissioner change that took place. Rudy Washington, he was a president of the Black Coaches Association. He came over, and he was a big proponent of expansion. But one of the things he wanted to do with the SWAC was, with this new expansion of 10 members, he wanted to split the teams in 2 divisions, and he had this dream to play a SWAC championship game. It took a year, and in 1999, when those 2 new members were full members, they kicked off and they had the first SWAC championship game. As history would have it, when they started talking about splitting into divisions a couple of years before it, there were several sites, which is one of the next questions that you had buried in it. Where did it go? Well, Louisiana Superdome in New Orleans was a potential site. People may not recall, but at that time, the SWAC office was housed in New Orleans, in the Superdome. And then the Astrodome, that lets you know how far back we're going. There was an Astrodome that was physical. Now we have NRG that took the place of the Astrodome. At that time, you had the Astrodome. At that time, you still had the Georgia Dome in Atlanta as a potential place. Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium in Jackson was a potential. So it's intriguing that you asked the question and said maybe it's going to Jackson. It was on the paper as being potential one of the places to host it. Ladd Peebles Stadium in Mobile was also another place. And then lastly, which ultimately became not only the home of the SWAC office when he moved there, but also Legion Field. And a lot of that decision was based on finances. Birmingham came hard. Came really hard and wanted the SWAC and what they thought it could do for Birmingham, a very large African-American region. And so they pushed for it, city officials. So they essentially gave a deal to lease out property, essentially for $1, because they couldn't give it away. They had to give something on it. So they basically put it on $1, and then they gave them, for a while, rent-free facilities of Legion Field, or at least very inexpensive, essentially at no cost. So that was really the talk. Amongst this, as history would have it, at that time, you probably now go back and you realize that there was a lot of talk about further expanding the conference to really try to get to 12, maybe even 14. There was talks about going after FAMU then, going after Tennessee State, going after Tuskegee, going after Atlanta, Morris Brown, as it was still functioning. And that was before Morris Brown took the leap and moved to Division I. But they were supposed to look at partnering in Morris Brown with Clark Atlanta. They had an open office on the table discussing that. Morris Brown and Clark Atlanta looked very hard at it. Morris Brown went as far as moving to Division I. They did it independently, along with Savannah State. As you remember them being independent programs, Morris Brown was short-lived. But with that being said, Morris Brown on paper actually got the votes of the athletic directors at that time. Quietly, the presidents and chancellors of the SWAC were concerned about some financial stuff. Morris Brown never sent over the final financial paperwork, so there was no vote by the SWAC presidents and chancellors. Essentially, if they would have voted, they would have voted no, because they didn't have all the information necessary. And now we know the rest of the history in regards to Morris Brown getting into his financial situation. So that didn't work out. And then many years later now, you have the expansion of the SWAC with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. But that's a lot of your history in terms of the championship game that was voted on by the SWAC Council of Presidents in February 1999, where you have that following fall year championship game. And the first championship game was a sunny and bright day. I was there. You had fans from all over, much like you see with the Celebration Bowl, wearing all the different paraphernalias of different schools. I remember seeing people with Tennessee State hats on. I remember seeing FAMU hats on, Clark Atlanta, Morris Brown. I remember seeing Miles College, Tuskegee, all around that stadium. It was a beautiful sunny day. and you had two of the biggest brands of the SWAC, Jackson State and Southern, as we entered that era where they seemed to play for championships all the time. They played in the game, and it was a classic game that went down to the wire with Southern winning the inaugural SWAC Championship Game in 1999.
Wasn't it even on television? It was on
BET, I believe.
Yeah.
BET at the time. Giving some love. That's why you hear a lot of folks still talking about BET. That's when BET was a heavy rotation player of HBCU programs at that time. This was before NBC picked up the lead in regards. This is when the Heritage Bowl was still in existence. It featured the MEAC and SWAC champion, and a little anecdote in terms of that. It was the CIAA and another Division II conference that created a regulation in the NCAA that allowed a championship game to be played at that time for smaller Division I schools, is because all the travel and they had large conferences, they couldn't play everybody, so they have a championship game to play in that. They never used it at the time at the CIAA. Well, the commissioner, Roy Kramer, found that rule because at that time in the NCAA, all the rules counted all the way up. So even though it was a Division III rule, you could use it at Division I or Division II level. That's when they expanded, and they end up having the first SEC championship game, which literally changes the role of how we see athletics to this day. Some people still see that as the reason for major expansion beyond the television money of how it went down. But that rule was put on the books by the CIAA. The other thing that's important here, because there was only 10 SWAC schools, the SWAC actually had a violation when they went to the Heritage Bowl. The NCAA spanked the hands of the SWAC because you needed 12 members. Unfortunately, Rudy Washington didn't catch this bylaw, and that ended up being the last year of the Heritage Bowl. Some people blame it on that. Some people blame it on low numbers. Some people blame it on the fact that the MEAC at the time was doing the playoffs and wasn't totally committed to it, but it was probably a little bit of all of that. But one of the things is they pushed so hard at Rudy Washington and did their thing while they slapped the hand and fined the SWAC. They did change the rule. They changed the nomenclature of what a SWAC championship game was called in such a way that it did not count as a postseason game after that. But that first year, it was considered a postseason game. So the SWAC was in trouble because they played two postseason events, the SWAC championship game and the Heritage Bowl in 1999. That's on the books in the history if you really go look at it. Now, your follow-up question is like, well, how things changed? Well, SWAC was in some financial dispositions under Dewar Sharp, unfortunately, at that time. And it moved to Houston where they had really good crowds, but the price of renting out the facility, because there was no kickbacks and real support from the city or whatever, didn't do enough process to get that done. And both that and the basketball tournament that was held at Toyota, the professional basketball NBA franchise from the Houston Rockets, that the SWAC was essentially going broke. Didn't have any money, couldn't pay dividends back to the schools in terms of that. And so the SWAC presidents actually voted to cancel the SWAC championship game.
I remember that.
It was done.
It was this again, Dr. Cavil?
It was dead.
It was dead. This was right before COVID. And then,
like 2018, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 2018.
And then the coaches, thankfully, the coaches in the league at the time really pushed back and went to the commission and said, no, we need to keep the SWAC championship game. I remember to this day, we were talking about it on our show when we were still in the studio with Charles and Mike. And Charles Bishop came up and he said, man, there's some students, they don't know, young folks that grew up, they don't know anything but a SWAC championship game. And I thought about it. It was about 20 years. I was like, man, you're right. There's some kids that were really born at the start of the SWAC championship, and when they had basically said they were going to cut it off, they were 20 years. They were born and then heading to college. They knew nothing else except for the SWAC played a championship game at the FCS level, unheard of in terms of the FCS level. This was before SIEC ultimately did it, CIAA did it, in terms of lower level leagues outside of the Power 5 conferences, if you would, in terms of the BCS at that time. So it was something that was extremely unique. So there was a lot of sadness when people hearing that. Again, the coaches for the SWAC pushed back and said they wanted to play the game. So they were going to bring it back. And it was going back to Birmingham. It went to Birmingham, but it was scheduled, and UAB had one of these great years. They had the first rights to the facility. It looked like they were going to host the game because they were winning their division. And so there was going to be a major problem. Charles had just taken over the SWAC or whatever. And when they went in through the process of that, Charles was like, the commissioner, Dr. Charles McCullum, was like, he did not want to play on a field that had all the logos of UABB in the Conference UA Championship game. That's when they decided to move it to campus. It was the best decision financially for the SWAC. Alcorn ended up hosting it. It was a full capacity. ESPN loved the environment because it was a full stadium. It happened to be Southern and Alcorn. And it was electric. Then the financial numbers came in. Alcorn ended up making at least $750,000. Some people said, depending if you put in parking, it was upwards to $1 million in terms of what that looks like. Last 2 years after COVID coming back with Jackson State, they made north of $1 million. So that's when we found out the worth of, if we took it to a neutral site, that a city council or a city that would put in a bid would have to put in north of $1 million to make any sense to take it to a neutral site.
Yeah. The visuals,
hey, Dr. Cavil.
Go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say, Dr. Cavil, going back to that 2018 with UAB and their playoff run, correct me if I'm wrong, that was pre-Progressive Field being completed in Birmingham, which means Legion Field was the only facility in Birmingham at that point in time. Also, am I correct with my timeline?
That's where UAB actually played its own games. They were still playing at UAB, so you're actually right. There was no Progressive Field. That was the home stadium for UAB, and they were in the playoffs, and they had the first rights. And it was found out that DualShock didn't sign the contract, so there was no legal standing to help support the SWAC in their efforts. So the best thing they could do is push the game to like Friday. But you couldn't have a changeover of the field in time to not have the painting at Legion Field. And that's when the meeting was discovered, and they called back, and the presidents and chancellors agreed to take it to home campus, and found out that it was probably one of the best decisions SWAC ever made.
If I'm not mistaken, that was also the first year UAB program was football program was reinstituted because they had shut the program down. And
for like a year or two.
For a year, they fought to get it back, and that was the first year. And that first year, they ended up having this great season. No one thought they were going to have a great season coming back after being dead for 2 years. And then these guys get out there and they had like an 8-9 win season. So, yeah, I remember all of that was going on at the time.
And the irony of it was they did not host the game that Saturday, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah,
that was the irony out of all of it.
They lost late in the season, so it didn't fall the way it was. But remember, all this stuff started tracking about with 2 or 3 games left on the season. It became a huge, huge issue for the SWAC.
The attendance had, I don't know what the initial attendance numbers were for that first one. I've seen the video clips of it. It looked like it was a packed stadium, but there was a trend that the
47,621.
The first one.
Still the record.
Which was where?
In Birmingham, Legion Field.
Okay, when it moved
to Southern was the MVP.
So
was the score.
So what was outside of Legion Field? What years did it move to Houston? And I remember seeing that the numbers in Houston had started trending down.
Yeah, it moved to Houston in 2013.
Okay.
NRG Stadium. It was 38,000 the first year. Yeah, and let me take this back because 47 was the best. They did have a 43 year when Southern and Grambling played, but usually in Birmingham it was 30,000. Then it started trickling down to 20,000.
How did that work?
Some of that was due to weather. You know, during that part of the year in December, sometimes you had some really bad weather. So, for example, in 2009, Prairie and Alabama A&M played. They played in a sleet storm.
Good Lord!
Yeah, it was horrible. Because I happened to be out there. Everybody from my Prairie team, I had some folks that were working with me in the media at the time. And at the end, when they found out they were going to win, they left and went and wanted to be in the crowd. I was like, no, it's too cold. I'll wait. So I stayed up there to the very end, and then I went in the locker room with the players and Coach Henry Frazier, now Dr. Henry Frazier III, and gave him a cigar. And boy, did we have a blast. We went back to the hotel, and that's when you still had the atrium in Birmingham, where Prairie View happened to have most of the people staying there. And it was literally a party because the folks checked us out the next morning and said, man, we hadn't seen folks party quite like this. And they were happy because they got tipped and made much type of money, big time. But yeah, so yeah, it was closer to that. The last couple of years in Birmingham, to be specific, last 3 years, you had 22,003, 23,004, and then 32,000, which was that infamous Arkansas Pine Bluff Jackson State game. Rest in peace to the quarterback there, but Willie Young, Arkansas Pine Bluff, was the MVP of that matchup where Arkansas Pine Bluff won 24-21. Classically come from behind. The first year they kind of bumped it up. It's odd that Southern Jackson seems to have all these first-year successes. The first year in NRG Stadium in 2013, it was another classic matchup that went down to the wire where Jackson State thought they had caught the winning touchdown, but the guy back of his foot as he catches it going away is literally lands on the end line in the end zone to negate what would have been the tying touchdown, and they lose 34-27, 38,985. Following year was Alcorn and Southern, 38,969. Then it was Alcorn and Grambling, 40,352. That's 2015. That's the first year of the Celebration Bowl, where Alcorn goes and plays North Carolina A&T in that classic game. The following year in 2016, it really dipped. But again, that was another snowstorm, oddly enough. And a lot of it touched on Houston wasn't that bad, but people that were trying to get here from above I-20 couldn't. It basically was frozen in Dallas, frozen. You had flights that were canceled and stuff like that. So it was 24,917, that matchup. But it stayed there in 2017, 24-16. I don't know what that was. It was a rematch, so maybe people just weren't excited about that. By the end, people were really also getting into the Celebration Bowl. And it dips when Southern and Alcorn play that first year. And 2017 was the last year. But again, it wasn't so much in terms of the attendance that drove the fact whether or not to keep it in neutral site. It was more about the fact that the financial cost of keeping it in there in terms of not getting any major kickbacks or subsidies from the city to support it like you have any major event of this size. You put that there. And there were some people in the city of Houston, to give credit, that tried to fight and keep it there and we're going to give more subsidies, but that last minute thing kind of threw it out. At that time, they were also fighting to keep the SWAC office, remove the SWAC office because Dr. Charles McCullum becomes commissioner. He's in Houston, so a lot of folks thought maybe he would just stay in Houston. So a lot of people were pushing, including Houston dignitaries and officials, about moving the SWAC office to Houston, which is interesting. Again, Birmingham stepped up and gave a significant deal, subsidies that included some different spaces and things of that nature, rental of different facilities there to support things. And so it stays, SWAC office stays in Birmingham. And Dr. Charles McCullum moves over there. And ever since I've talked to him, he's loved his experience in Birmingham. And then in 2018 is the first time it goes to a host site, as we alluded to back at the beginning of the conversation.
What's unique about this particular year, the first time that it sort of moves outside of the old traditional SWAC footprint. It's not in Mississippi, not in Houston, not in Alabama. It's as far east. I'll say this: it's as far east as the FAMU Rattlers are going to allow it to go. Being in Tallahassee. You caught that, didn't you, Drew? You caught that?
We can't.
Okay.
No SWAC championship on the beach, Brian.
No, we can't do that. We can't do that. This is about as far east as we're going to allow it to get. But it does make for an interesting opportunity here for the SWAC to grow into a new footprint where, you know, FAMU is FAMU. And I mean, we all understand FAMU is one of the blue bloods, and it's going to draw its own attention. I'm curious about the Prairie View contingent of people that are going to come, because I think that's what makes the environment. I go back to 2018, the first year, and I'll tell you, and Drew, I think we talked about this when we did our end of the year show, like the greatest moment, and I think we even got a good celebration bowl, but the visuals that were captured of Southern and Alcorn, and I don't know, you know, sometimes when the TV production people get the sound right and they get the TV shots right, they do a perfect game that day. I swear, if anybody ever goes back and looks at the game of the SWAC Championship Game in 2018 at Alcorn, it's amazing. It is the sell of why Black college football. That's why. So I'm hoping that Prairie View is bringing. Doc shaking his head. And that's the challenge.
I mean, but that's a very unique situation from the standpoint that is an old SWAC rivalry between Southern and Alcorn. And it was just coming off the fact that those teams were playing in some classic matchups against each other, regular season. And this was the time where they started playing. As you just listened, I told you the number of times Southern in the last 4 or 5 years and Alcorn were in the championship game. So those fans were routed up. They have old traditions, but they were used to traveling in that capacity. And usually when they come down there, it's known that Southern is going to take essentially one side of the field. So everybody from Alcorn by de facto, when a lot of times they would have both sides, they squeeze into one side. So it's very unique in that situation. Also, it's a very easy trip, essentially, for those two schools. You know, they are literally, for the longest in SWAC basketball, those two teams were the travel partners. It was not Grambling and Southern, what you see now. When it was just 10 teams prior to that, the travel partner was Southern and Alcorn. And that's because when you made that route, it was very easy to go to Southern and Alcorn, or go to Alcorn and then backtrack and come to Southern in terms of playing those Saturday, Monday, games. So I think it's important to understand that when you start looking at the nature of these rivals in terms of that. I think if you had the unique situation where maybe it was Southern and FAMU, because you're talking about a straight trip, a trip that Southern fans are used to making, know about the arrangements, know all that stuff, and that's different. People can do that. But Prairie View, it's not a lot of folks are going to drive down there. They got a couple of buses that are coming down there, but that's not an easy trip. Other than Bethune-Cookman, if you think about it, you have essentially the two furthest teams, maybe Alabama, A&M, and Prairie View. You have essentially the two furthest teams coming into play. So that's a long drive. Then you add in, and this is not to provide disparaging to Tallahassee, but Tallahassee is not an easy place to fly into. You can't get straight trips into Tallahassee, right? There's not a friendly place in terms of financing for a hotel in the Tallahassee. So even if you get there, to get a hotel is one thing, and then the price of the hotel is extremely high. I have friends that travel all the time because they're business folks. That's no different. But Tallahassee wouldn't even honor their points because they didn't have to, because they were selling so many books out. So, it's not a lack of Prairie View folks seeking to get there,
But the challenges to make that trip are extremely difficult in terms of this modern era of folks do that. Now, that section that they'll have for Prairie View, it'll be full. They'll come down there and they'll have the band, they'll have that type of pageantry, they'll have the cheerleaders. So all that will be in there in the motion. But no, if you're looking for something like Southern Alcorn, I think that's going to be a major challenge. I think FAMU is in a position that FAMU fans that are celebrating this opportunity, that are not banking on cashing in on the Celebration Bowl, they're going to be in there. And I talked to some FAMU folks around this thing, and their heads in their bets. And I don't blame them, but they have the same issue coming from Houston or Dallas trying to get to Tallahassee. They're not making the trip. They're having watch parties and things of that nature because it's a challenge to get into Tallahassee in terms of flights and range. So they went to homecoming. Some of them doubled down and went to the Florida Classic, but they're not coming back.
Hey, I will say, if
you know what I'm saying? Again, this is not to disparage the Rattler fans, FAMU fans, but Tallahassee needs to understand that they got two beautiful state institutions and they got to grow that city. They need some folks to invest in that area. It's the capital. I hadn't seen a city capital that ain't doing better in terms of more hotel space, and not like they can't sell it out.
No, I think this is the start of. I think this could be the start or the impetus for some changes, because I think eyes will open up after this weekend, and they will see, and they'll be like, "Whoa, we didn't know it was like this."
Yeah,
they're like,
they're
trying to tell
y'all. They'll be like, "We leaving money on the table." And you exactly right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Barry, that's a 5-hour drive from Atlanta to Tallahassee. That's not an option for a lot of people. You might as well drive the whole way if I got to drive another 5 hours.
Now, I'm flying into Panama City because it's a straight flight from Southwest. And I'd rather take the 2-hour drive over. And I know some other folks are flying in. What's the other Southwest?
Jacksonville.
I was going to say Jacksonville is closer than Atlanta.
Some people are flying in there. It's an hour and it's about the same. But mine, in terms of times of flight, was better. Pricing was pretty much the same, a little cheaper. But I like to fly straight. I don't like sitting in no hour and a half way over. If I'm going to do that, I might as well get on the road and drive the other 2 hours. So we're going to connect from Houston to Dallas and then go in there, or you're going to connect in Atlanta to go in there. That's what it was.
Yeah. Direct flights into Tallahassee, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Dallas. Those three, because you fly to those hubs. So, like you say, Dr. Cavil, unless you're in one of those three cities, you're not going to fly directly into Tallahassee. And even if you do fly to Tallahassee out of one of those three cities, you're going to pay a premium.
Yep, and you're limited on your time availability when you fly to Tallahassee. Absolutely.
Can we always like talking the financial numbers. One of the things that I was able to get from the SWAC office, and I shared a little bit of this on Wednesday, the past episode of the ONG, but the financial opportunity for FAMU to make non-budgeted revenue on this event is outstanding. And that's why the coaches or athletic directors, programs, they don't want to move to a neutral site. I mean, of course, unless it's a really, really, really good deal, but they really like this format where essentially being the host team, you get all of the benefits. I mean, even when you sell or give tickets to the other team, guess what? They're paying for that. That money is going to the whole school. The whole school controls all the parking, all the concessions. They control everything. And again, we're talking a non-budgeted game. So this is extra money. So, I mean, if we just went with the Alcorn numbers, I mean, obviously the Jackson State numbers, we don't have that kind of stadium, but the Alcorn numbers would be comparative, where FAMU could make close to $1 million of non-budgeted money. And then you carry that forward into what you can make in a Celebration Bowl. This is a big financial gain for teams to win and be the best team in the SWAC.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love the setup. I mean, it rewards the team that plays the best over the year. It's easy. If you want the SWAC championship game, win the regular season, have the best record, and you don't have to worry about nothing. And so the team that does that, they deserve all of that. They deserve that opportunity to take that money and that windfall. And it's a celebration in terms of the team culminating with the fans and the culture of rewarding the fans all year long for supporting the team to get them to that point. So you're right. When you're talking about $250,000 to $1 million windfall with that, and FAMU has one of the best licensing things that's out there. So imagine all the additional merchandise you're going to sell with clinching the Eastern Division. If you clinch the SWAC Championship game, you clinch and go to the Celebration Bowl. All that merchandising, that's official, and that's for everybody out there that you need to buy from the official outlets that are supporting your institution. Let me put that on the record in terms of all your stuff that you're going to wear out there. Buy all that stuff because it goes back and supports your institution. You go to Celebration Bowl and you start at about $1 million. You can get a little more than it. You can get, you know, depending on what you sell on your ticket, a lot. So you're talking about anywhere from $1 million and basically $2 million to almost $2.5 million of unbudgeted money that's going into your program. Now, I just hope whoever sees that understands that a significant part of that needs to go back to athletics, and just as much a significant part of that needs to go into the football program so you can maintain the success.
Yes, preach.
ROI, return on investment. You invested on this. Now you're seeing the reward. Double down.
Yes.
Double down.
Preach, Doc.
And see what happens in regards to what you get done in terms of what happens. We've seen it for 2 years with Jackson State. We've seen it with 2 years prior to that with Alcorn, and you see what it means if you double down. I can tell you now, a lot of Alcorn folks are frustrated because they didn't really double down. They paid off debt in that. We'll see what that means in terms of Jackson. Did they really double down in terms of that? But yes, those are the type of rewards if you got that. And FAMU, for that matter, is on the hunt. And at this point, if you get in there, you host it, you on a 2-year cycle, it seems. So So if you can do it for 2 years, get it done. Now you talking about over a 2-year period, you talking about damn near $5 million.
Where else you gonna do that at? You know?
Yeah, I certainly know you ain't gonna do it in no playoff. That's the playoff.
That's a lot of chicken plates.
Yeah, no, we seen that. We seen that. What other Drew? What was the historical numbers we were looking at? The this is actually is it the 11th or is it 12th time that teams have met again in the SWAC championship game, meaning that they played during the regular season, and this is the 12th time since 2010, right?
Yeah, since 2010, there have been 11 times that the opponents in the championship game played in the regular season and in the SWAC championship game. And I don't know why you making me do this to Dr. Cavil, Bryan, because I brought this up on his show, one of the shows this week, and he looked at me side-eyed then, and he's looking at me side-eyed now, because this stat does not favor Prairie View A&M. But since 2010, in those 11 matchups, the team that won the regular season matchup is 9-2 in the SWAC championship game. The two exceptions. 2012, Jackson State defeated UAPB in the regular season. And in 2012, the infamous game where UAPB defeated Jackson State, and they say that's the game that cost Coach Kamaji one of the reasons that Coach Kamaji lost his job at Jackson State.
I would agree with that. It's a significant reason.
Yes. And in 2015, Alcorn won the regular season matchup, and then Grambling won the postseason matchup, the SWAC Championship game, and I believe that was the first Celebration Bowl, if I do recall correctly, which A&T went on to defeat Grambling in the initial Celebration Bowl.
That's correct, 2017. Yeah, we're just looking to make it 25%. Those Prairie folks are looking to make it 25%. Then.
Yes, and of course, you know, we're going to get into the game breakdown later on this week. We've got multiple shows here on the Black College Sports Network, but by inviting you on today, Dr. Cavil, we just kind of wanted to take another look at some of the other ancillary things around the SWAC Championship game and everything that surrounds the
well,
SWAC
y'all have an open invitation for Thursday, so you can get in and talk a little more of the X's and O's. Since you shared the time and space here to talk a little bit about the business and the historical footnote, you can come on and pencil in if you can work it into your schedule to come on inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Thursday, and we'll really get into the X's and O's with the crew.
Yes, definitely. But I do want to ask you this, Dr. Cavil. You've been around the SWAC Championship game since its infancy.
Even just put it out there, he's right. No road team has ever won the SWAC Championship since it went to home field advantage. And again, you know,
4-0 at home.
Yeah, 4-0. So we're just looking to make sure it becomes. We're looking at that 20%. We're just looking at 20%.
But Dr. Cavil, where do you see the SWAC Championship game going now? Because you know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you would have never envisioned it actually going on someone's campus and it doing the success that it has done since it's been on campus. So where can we take this SWAC Championship game? You know,
if it goes back to a large city, I think it has to be a city with a dome because of the time of the year and with the weather. It has to be a city with, you know, people have interest in. And if you start doing that, you kind of start locking out potential destinations, which is a challenge because you want folks to
that needs three destinations. That's Houston, New Orleans, and Atlanta.
You talk about a dome. 4 cities, maybe 5 when Nashville comes on board and they dome their stadium. Yes. So you're essentially talking about Atlanta, New Orleans, maybe Nashville, Dallas, and Houston. Atlanta is outside of the market right now. Nashville is outside of the market. Dallas, you can decide whether you want to call it in the market. Obviously, you have the State Fair Classic, but it's outside the general marketplace, if you would, for Texas Southern and Prairie View. So now you're talking about New Orleans and Houston. New Orleans, you're literally talking about the
back-to-back
of the Bayou Classic. I don't know, marketing-wise, that makes sense. It's kind of hard to tell folks to come back in there. New Orleans is always a great place to play. But New Orleans is also a challenge because they don't necessarily give a lot of great rebates because so many people want to go to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So it's not a inexpensive city to go to. So the last one I kind of see getting in the marketplace that could see the value of it and has had it, and so they see it personally, would be Houston. So depending on the mayor and those kind of things, obviously Houston Harris County Sports Authority, I know over some times they had some interest, but it becomes now about who sees the return on investment. And as I said, essentially wants to put a guaranteed $1 million on the table. Pretty much the starting point, in my opinion.
All right. Anything, Doc, that we left off table that maybe you wanted to share? Anything that we didn't mention?
No, I think we covered it all in regards to really all the good stuff. Great questions that you asked in terms of getting into it. So hopefully everybody was entertained by this information to kind of take them down memory lane for some and for others new information. But I think it's fascinating. You know, the biggest thing next for me is I'll continue to push this. I know that it's not something that the office is necessarily pushing for, but as the time churns and people continue to see the financial benefit of the SWAC and this particular game, it's going to be fascinating to see where we go with expansion as we continue to move forward. Obviously, I continue to talk about getting into that Atlanta market.
Yes, definitely.
Nashville wouldn't be bad either if they can get them to understand what it means to make real money. Talking about rivalry with Tennessee State. Obviously, you got natural rivalries with Jackson State, even though they may be on the outside looking in for each other. You have Alabama State and Alabama A&M. And then you have the movement that people are talking about in Atlanta, about them buzzing around and looking at a Division I reclassification. So fascinating to see where these roads leads to. As we continue to see conference churning at all levels, at some point it will trickle down to us. So it's fascinating to see what that looks like. So to me, that's the real next chapter before we kind of see things continue to move forward.
Definitely. Hey Doc, I know it's not Tuesday, but you got a couple moments to hang around while we go through the semifinal of the BCSN top 5.
Yeah, I always like to see what y'all got in the top 5. Let's get it.
All right, the good old BCSN top 5. We haven't done this in a minute, but the rankings have been happening. So just because you haven't seen them doesn't mean they're not existing. So now, I don't know, Drew. Is this our final?
No, this is our final regular season ranking. We won't do anything until after all the championship games and bowl games. So basically everything will be frozen right now. We know we on the FCS level, we've got 3 teams still that can potentially move. That being Howard, Prairie View, and Florida A&M. And on the Division II level, although you can pretty much chalk up unofficially Benedict as the national champion, the question is, where do Johnson C. Smith and Fort Valley finish with those 2 teams still having a game out there to play against each other?
All right, so this is the end of the regular season, correct?
Correct.
All right, so what do we have first, the mid-major or the non-one?
Yeah, and right now we're just going to do the top 5 right now. When we come out with the final one, we'll do the quote in the hunt or the second 5. We'll let those out, but these are the 5 that are on the list as of right now.
End of the regular season, top 5. Number 5 is Fort Valley State. Ended the season 7-3, 6-2 in conference play. Number 4 is Florida Memorial. Great season, winning record in the Sun Conference, 6-4 total, 5-2. Congrats to Florida Memorial. Number 3, Virginia State. Interesting. Finished 8-2, 6-2 in conference, as well as the Northern Division. Number 2 would be Virginia Union. Finished the regular season 9-1, went on to win the CIAA championship, lost in the first or opening round at Kutztown, Pennsylvania in the playoffs. And number 1, the Benedict Tigers finished 11-0 in total, SIC champions. Of course, they finished their regular season 11-1, only loss coming yesterday to Lenoir-Rhyne. There's Virginia Union at 2 in their final record, another 10-win season. Well, actually, I think this is the first 10-win season. I think last year they finished 9-3 last year. So
correct.
Virginia State, Florida Memorial, and Fort Valley State rounding out the top 5 from 3 different conferences. All right.
Man,
so
I like that. I was a little indifferent about the Florida Memorial. I didn't have them that high, but obviously you all do a strength component to that, so I certainly understand where that's fitting at. But I like, and it pretty played out. When you look at just the records and teams that made the playoffs, it made it pretty clean. So with most of that, I agree with. I think I have Johnson C. Smith that snuck into my top 5. And that's about the only thing we see different in terms of who's in and out of the top 5 between Florida Memorial and Johnson C. Smith. One thing, before you break it down further, that is fascinating to me, wouldn't you love to see a Benedict Tigers versus Virginia Union Panthers matchup? And no, for Division II, I understand that there's a lot of pride in terms of them going to the playoffs. And I think the way it sets up, it's good for them to go to the playoffs. The money on the other side is not there yet, and so they don't have to worry about answer that question. But it would be fascinating to see a matchup where you see Benedict Tigers and Virginia Union playing in like the quarterfinals of a matchup. I guess this year, since they were in different divisions, even if it was, first, second round type matchup, that would be cool. This year, obviously, they would have to basically match up in a quarterfinals or a championship?
Semifinal.
Or a championship.
Yeah, it would have been a semifinal. Yeah. Hell, Dr. Cavil, I'd be happy to see a matchup of the previous 2 champions in week 0 like they tried to pull off this particular year.
Wow, exactly. See, that's where I was going to go.
Now, there's a real possibility that can happen. My understanding that the NCAA, that there are a lot of different presidents and ADs that are pushing that week 0, not just SIAC and CIAA, which is likely going to benefit them. And I wouldn't be surprised if it passes this all season so they can start it up next year. So you're right. That would be fascinating to see things kick off with this week 0 matchup in the CIAA SIAC. Now, my question for you, where would the game be played?
Honestly, I would like to see a game like that possibly in Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to see that in Charlotte because
between both schools. Let's see.
Yeah,
Richmond and South Carolina. Yeah, I guess. North Carolina sits in between, doesn't it?
It's pretty close. Close. It has a lot of rich history in terms of HBCUs in that area. So you
got an NFL stadium.
Yep, really nice stadium opportunities there. But even though I would like to see it played in a soccer type friendly stadium. So if you sold out upwards to 20-some thousand, that you really get an intimate feel in terms of what it looks like for the camera.
Yeah, definitely. Isn't there a MLS team in the Carolinas also? Or am
yes, they just have one. I know, and I think they're building a stadium for it. I don't think they built it yet.
They haven't built
state of art stadium, I should say. They obviously play in their own current stadium. Yes.
Correct. But yeah, I think that would be great, especially with the sale of the suites and everything else. That pretty much nowadays, if you're going to have a classic, you want to be able to sell the suites because for us, I won't say us, but some of y'all uppity now. Y'all don't like sitting in the bleachers anymore. Y'all need to have the suites and everything. So
I agree,
and that's all the business is.
I believe in the suite life. I'm at Prairie. I am the owner of a suite. 228 hashtag suite life. 228. I will not hide it. I feel it. So yes, I celebrate it. I do well in life, and I'm put myself in a position that I can have a suite with friends and colleagues.
There you go.
And that's what I will do. So yes, the modern framework of fans are suite induced people. So if that's what it is, you market towards that.
And the social spaces, as they call them.
Escalator, sports escalator. Find your fans wherever they are and make ticket prices and availability for all those different people, however they want to watch.
Let's get to this FCS.
All right, here we go. Over on the FCS side, Division I, our top 5 starts with number 5, Tennessee State, ends their season 6-5, 2-4 in conference play. I think they lose their final 3 regular season games.
Right. They did.
That's a tough end to the season for Tennessee. Still an improvement from last year, but not what everyone thought it would be. Alabama State finishes at number 4, thanks in part to the win against Tuskegee. They finished 7-4, 5-3. Number 3 is Howard. The Bison finished as the MEAC champions, 6-5, 4-1 in conference play, heading to Atlanta. Number 2 finished their season Saturday. North Carolina Central, 9-3, 4-1. Great season, great career for Davius Richard. And number 1, playing in this week's SWAC Championship Game, Florida A&M, first 10-win season since 1999, and they're not done. So there's your top 5 at the end of the regular season: Florida A&M, North Carolina Central, Howard, Alabama State, Tennessee State. What's interesting is outside of FAMU, Alabama State, Alcorn, and Jackson State all finished 7-4, right? Alabama State, let me see. Who did Alcorn end up beating? Didn't Alcorn beat Alabama State?
Yes.
Yes.
Did Alcorn beat Jackson State?
Yes.
No.
And Alabama State beat Jackson State. Alabama State beat Jackson State.
Correct.
That's what I find. I think that's where I was going with what's interesting about this, if I could add my little.
Yeah, this one is the real interesting. Y'all need to go check your data entry points. You need to go check your computers because this is off. This is a major problem here. I do not understand. See, y'all, now I understand that you are rattlers and y'all
computers, not
us. No, let me have my moment because I'm going. Y'all killing Prairie if you don't send no fans. I know we might have 5 fans in the stands, but who gives a damn? At some point, it's what played on the field. Who other than FAMU? Tell me the team between FAMU and Howard. Who are the team that has won their last 3 games of the season? What Division I FCS program? Riddle me this.
I guess I'm just going to take a educated guess and say it's Prairie View.
Yeah, it's one of the last 3 teams standing that you're talking about. Good Lord. You got a Tennessee State team that has lost its last 3 games.
They built up such a big lead.
Lost to Prairie View. You know, did y'all see that Prairie View in did y'all put that in the book that they like played each other?
But Dr. Cavil, the computers,
y'all talking about, y'all like to talk about strength of schedules. Prairie View didn't play any Division II team. Alabama State played 2. Got beat by one of them.
Drew, we gotta go.
No. Sometimes you just need to be quiet. Take your list.
Dr. Cavil, all I'm going to say is some of the points that you bring up are valid and may when we go back for looking for adjustments for the algorithm for 2024 or ways that we need to figure out how to adjust the algorithm for things such as trends, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Winning streaks.
And
winning streaks. Also,
but the computer does not take it head to head, but it does take in that strength of schedule, and
I don't know how Alabama State strength of schedule is stronger than Prairie View. They got an SMU team that's playing for a championship on the schedule.
See, this is where
one of the teams they played in non-conference had a 500 record, and the other one had a winner.
I trust the computer to get it right at the top. I can't. Right. I don't know what the computer is doing. I don't know what the computer is doing outside of the top 2 teams. Outside of that, the computer is doing its own thing.
I'll take that. That's a good answer. But I was looking over the record today because so many people, want other things. But in terms of 2 teams playing for a championship, somebody was looking at the case and saying, hey, should they change it where it's about the top 2 teams and not the top 2 in each division? So I was like, yeah, I can see where you could make that argument. Particularly the last 2 years, it was easy to see the top 2 teams with Jackson and FAMU. But that's why I think you have to be careful to make rush decisions. A lot of the way that is made is because of travel concerns. But this year, if you had that model, guess who would have been the second team represented in the conference?
Would it still have been Prairie View?
Who?
Yeah, still been Prairie View.
Oh, okay.
Remember, Alabama State finished the season at 5-3 because of their last game. They lost to Prairie View.
That's correct.
Yeah,
tiebreaker.
Jackson State finished the season at what?
5-3.
5-3.
Tiebreaker.
Right. Southern finished the season at
5-3.
Hey Doc, I'm on your side. Remember, I picked.
So
I'm
the two
I'm
teams
the lone wolf
that were up there
Prairie
were
View.
Prairie View and Alcorn, 6-2, and who won the
Tiebreaker.
tiebreaker?
Hey, look,
Prairie View. So
I
Prairie
picked
View would have been the second team, regardless if you're doing divisions or not. I just thought I'd put that out there. Just make sure people to understand that Prairie View certainly earned their trip. Now, what happens in the game, that's beside the point. I think FAMU has shown clearly that they're the best team, HBCU, but that's why you play the game. We even seen that in the MEAC between Howard and North Carolina Central. I think people still to this day will feel that North Carolina Central was a better team, but that day, Howard got it done and put something on North Carolina Central in terms of getting it done. And they checked their bid to go to the Celebration Bowl. The rest is history.
And I got to respond to you. Look, EA, let me tell you a couple things. One, stop beating up our intern, okay? The intern missed the thing on the logos on page 5, okay? So the intern alone dropped the ball on the. They got it right on the.
They only make it minimum wage.
Now they're not even making that. So, so just relax. And then also, yes, it is the same computer that awarded FAMU a national title in 2019. It awarded Jackson State a national title in 2021. So, there. Okay.
So I'm going to make sure that I make this fight evenly. How is North Carolina Central ahead of Howard? Particularly after not only you got the head-to-head that y'all say y'all don't count, which you got to go back and fix that. And North Carolina Central lost their last game. Now, obviously, there was injuries involved, so if you take that in, I understand. But Richmond did put up 49 points.
And I could answer that.
So in 2 and 3 weeks,
on some of the numbers behind
North Carolina Central's defense has given up 49.5 points.
But it does although it does factor in that the reason Central is ahead is because of Central's non-conference schedule and the fact that they went 5-1 in non-conference play, whereas Howard, I believe, what was it? 2-4.
I agree with that. But I'm talking about at the end of the season. Y'all don't wait towards the end of the season.
But once again, remember that trend factor is not recognized by the computer.
I know.
All games
I'm saying you all need to add that. Y'all need to add that. Self-correction. When you know more, you do more. When you know better, you do better. I'm giving you information such that you know better so you can go back to the computers and correct the error of your ways.
But you know what this is doing, Dr. Cavil? This makes for a great podcast because this gives us something to discuss when we do this. Just like we break your poll apart, you break my Mac apart.
Great work that you're doing. I keep y'all because of care because I know y'all laugh at it and work on it. But no, those are the only things I've seen in the poll. But overall, I've enjoyed week to week the poll breakdown, and I think there is a lot of good information that you all put out there in terms of doing this different. Instead of the people voting on it, you put an algorithm to it, which takes up a lot more of that personal deviation. So I do appreciate it.
All right. We appreciate you, Doc. Thanks for your
Doesn't
time
mean
tonight.
it can't get better.
No, it can get better. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. We'll work on it. We'll work on it. Maybe we'll fix my
Homework
basketball
assignment.
season. Homework assignment, exactly. All right. Make sure you guys check out Tuesday night. Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Tuesday night, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. That's Tuesday and Thursday. and that's where you can find him, Charles, and Mike. And so we'll hopefully see everybody all in the building, and we'll see what happens from there.
And we'll catch up with everybody in Tallahassee hopefully this weekend also.
Yes, hopefully so. Hopefully we'll see everybody in Tallahassee. That'll be good.
Bring your rain jackets.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to see. I'm starting to see people talk about that in the chats that I might have to bring my little poncho or something, man. Just like Tallahassee, the weather be an issue. But anyway,
I'll be in the media booth, so I ain't got to worry about it. I just got to get there.
Yeah,
Now, he gonna see how he just.
See, I know that's
about
true.
me and my suite.
That's true.
Drew
knows that media box can't hold but 8 people. So I mean, he knows he'd be up there. Jeez Louise. But we'll see. I'll talk offline. Hopefully, some of my suggestions help out our fellow brethren, our media brethren, this upcoming weekend.
Please let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know. All right, Doc. Thanks for your time tonight.
All right, good done. Y'all
All
take
right.
care.
Yes, sir. Be well.
Appreciate you, my brother.
All right, Drew. We gotta get ready to get out of here, man. I got a pecan pie in the oven. I had a slice that I'm itching. Like I haven't even had my dinner. I got some pecan pie that I'm waiting to eat on. And I got to start mentally getting ready for school tomorrow. Yes, school is back in session tomorrow.
Yeah, I realize I got to go to work too tomorrow, man. It's something about having this week off.
Yeah, so somehow I have to try to mentally prepare myself to get back to it, and then we go there. But again, just to remind everybody, all this week on the Black College Sports Network, all of our shows will be talking about the Pepsi SWAC Football Championship.
Already got my T-shirt.
What T-shirt? What does that say? I can't see what that doggone thing says. Okay, hold on. I can't. No one can see that mess. Hold on. What does it say? Is that this? What is that? SWAC Championship Game? What year is that?
Yeah, that's the official gear for this upcoming game.
No, it's
I picked
not.
it up. Yeah, I picked this up Monday. It's the NCAA license. I picked this up Monday at the FAMU Cal game.
Really?
Yes, I picked this up in Lawson.
I didn't even tell anybody. Where in Boston?
Up top.
About the vendor that was up top?
Yes.
Campbell, stop. No.
It's not bootleg. This had the silver sticking on it.
He's an officially I'm not gonna say who it is, but it was an officially licensed vendor. Okay. FAMU, stop it. See,
I would not wear anything not licensed on this show as much as I talk about us giving back to our institutions. I just want to get clear that's perfectly clear.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do. Figure out what my gear situation. Maybe I need to call up yeah, I know what I need to do. Okay. Anyway, all right, that's what we're talking about. Ken Riley Field at Bragg Memorial Stadium, Saturday, 4 Eastern, 3 Central. Based on the weather reports that you guys are giving in the chat room, weather might be an issue. That'll be fun. So we'll take a look at that. Again, want to thank our guest for coming on tonight. I'm looking for something, Drew, but I can't find it.
I have no idea what you're looking for, so I can't help you, bro.
Yep, it's mentally. I'm mentally done. I'm done.
Okay.
Want to thank all of our guests for coming on tonight. And thank you guys for hanging out in the chat room. Those of you who like to, want to get more info on the FAMU side of things, make sure to check out Wednesday night ONG Strike Zone. We got a few special guests lined up for you. And then, of course, make sure to check out Doc's show on Tuesday and Thursday night, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. The Wednesday show, the ONG Strike Zone, starts at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. All right. For A.D. Drew, I'm Bryan Fulford. I want to thank you guys. Make sure to hit the thumbs up and the like button as you guys are exiting the studio. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're following the Black College Sports Network. You do us a solid if you share the show with your network and your community. Just retweet, repost, share, like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys for going on this journey with us, and we look forward to seeing all we will see on Saturday in Tallahassee. We look forward to seeing you in Tallahassee, home site of the 2023 SWAC Championship Game. Drew, any last words before we get out of here?
Nah, I just want to just since this is Thanksgiving weekend, I just want to thank everybody who tunes in to us on a weekly basis. You know, you guys make my week so much fun prepping what we have to do to be able to bring you guys thoughtful, insightful information on a regular basis. It's hard work, but you know, if I didn't enjoy doing it, I would not go out my way to make sure that I'm well prepared for this podcast each and every Sunday.
All right. Thank you to Coach Farasi. Make sure to find him at Coach Farasi on X. That's on Twitter. That sounded bad. Twitter is where you can find Coach Farasi at Coach Farasi. Excuse me. Coach Jackson of Valdosta State. Make sure you check out their program. Donate, support any way you can.
Adopted HBCU for the remainder of the season.
Exactly. The adopted HBCU that we're supporting in the Division II playoffs. And then, of course, Dr. Cavil, we thank him as well. We appreciate and love all you guys. You guys be safe. Have a great start to your week on Monday. Rise and shine. Attack the week. Go 1-0. Get 1% better. And all those other great catchphrases that you hear from your coaches, apply them to your life as much and as often as you can. For A.D. Drew, I'm Bryan Fulford. Peace out.
Travel light. We'll holler.
But stay on hard.